Sorry, guys, we're having a brief delay here. We'll be live in a moment here.
moment. I cannot hear you, but you're lighting up, so it must be on. Give me a moment, Admiral Gibbs.
I've had this name since I was like, I don't know, like whenever the original Xbox came out, right? It was an Xbox Live was a thing for the first time, and I read the Thrawn series, which is a Star Wars series. I don't know if you follow Star Wars, and I was like, oh, I want to be Grand Admiral. And Grand Admiral didn't work, so I just put Admiral, and it kind of came from there. And then I started doing announcing for Halo after I did play like in Halo. It's like like on a low level pro. I like started doing announcing, and then I was like, well, it's too late now. I'm branded as Admiral Gibbs. I don't want to. I'm not gonna ruin all my whatever. And then when we got into politics, I didn't think about people yelling, "Oh, stolen valor!" But here we are. People are like, he's stolen valor. I'm like, I had no relation to any in the military. My dad was a Marine. I guess he's retired now, but you're never not a Marine. But I have no relation to the military other than,
Gotcha.
passing interest.
Well, if you keep, getting complaints about the name Admiral Gibbs, have you thought about changing your name to Proud Veteran Gibbs?
Yeah, that would do it. It's my funniest one. It was actually Hutch that said it to me the first time, and I started laughing, and I was like, I don't want to be a dick, but I was like, do you know how old an admiral you have to be an admiral? Like, I don't know. I think you have to be in your mid-50s to like be an admiral. Like, pretty sure there's like a
Yeah, they're pretty. Yeah, you're up there. You're up there in age if you're an admiral. That's for sure.
Yeah, I was like, how old do you think I am? I feel like I should be insulted by just that comment.
It's true. That's true. Let's see what. Let me get your name up here. So, do you want to start by introducing yourself for somebody who might not know who you are? Admiral Gibbs,
Hey, yeah,
veteran of the Korean War.
yeah, right. I'm saying my name is Admiral Gibbs. I do politics shows. We also host a debate series called the Debate Championship Series, one-on-one ranked debates. We have impartial judges, and we determine a winner. Obviously, like I said, I did Halo announcing for a while, and I own a ranch here in Texas, as well as a B2B sales company and a leather company, and it's Papa Gibbs.
Fantastic. We've talked a few times before. I've had you on my debate program when I was hosting my debate program. It's good to catch up again with you now that I'm back in the United States. Is there anything you wanted to touch on quickly? Anything of interest to you before I went down the list of recent news?
Sure, we can actually start with recent news. There's one as of, well, I don't know what today's prices are because they're not out yet, but as of yesterday, beef prices all-time high. People don't like the tariffs and don't like some of this stuff, but for some industries, there is indication they are working exactly as they should be. Beef now is going to be, for the first time in 5 years, projected to actually increase tonnage. We were down about 4 million from 2022 to now we're probably going to be going up. Beef prices are up, so we're like about 2-3 years high and catching up with demand. So beef prices will probably continue to high, and that might hurt the consumer at the market. But it's actually a good indicator for the economy overall because now we're providing more jobs. We're creating, or at least for the beef part of the economy, we're getting more jobs. I know that we're expanding our herds for the first time in recent memory, and all the side industries are now profitable again. So we just had like one of our first halal butchers open up again recently here in Texas, which is crazy because it's a luxury good, and it's like there's not a giant Muslim population here compared to other states. So yeah, it's kind of exciting time as a beef person in the beef industry.
Well, very high beef prices. How is that affecting like restaurants and stuff? I imagine that higher steak prices is because
Uh,
I imagine there's at a certain point there's a consumer drop off that
well,
is
demand is
bothersome.
higher than ever. I think part of it is like beef is back in vogue. I mean, I think we all can all agree there's some sort of cultural shift that's happened recently, and prices for beef seem to be like one of the ones affecting because I guess now like you skirt steak used to be like 99 cents like a pound at the like unmarinated. Now it's like $2 or $3 even at the cheapest of supermarkets, right? When you talk about restaurants, I can actually speak to that directly. There's a company called Saltgrass Steakhouse down here in Texas, and we sell directly to them as well as like HEB grocers and a couple other La Michoacanas and whatnot. And their prices actually haven't changed because they buy in large enough bulk quantities that you're not going to see like big price increase for them. Now, where their prices have increased are on the farming side of things. Where you're going to see things like some of their products they've switched over. They used to have like I don't know, pecan, fucking salmon or something, and the price went up on that quite a bit because pecans have gone quite a bit up in price. I don't know what the reason for that is, but along for like restaurants and whatnot, there's not been a huge uptick in price as far as I'm aware.
Got you. Not related to beef, at least. So
Yeah,
beef
not really.
prices are up, but they haven't affected restaurant prices.
Not as far as I'm aware. However, I mean, I could be wrong, but at least the ones that I've been selling to, they haven't really had any change. Um, and I have a pretty pretty large herd, so I mean, I feel like I'd probably be able to see some indication of that. However, I know at grocery markets the prices are up.
Okay, prices are up at the grocery market. So that, I mean, I imagine that's good for you.
And it's good for me, yeah.
That is good. Well, I'm happy. Are you hiring anybody new?
Well, yeah, and this is really cool. Is so like this sounds bad when people are like, oh, beef prices are up, and I know people are gonna balk at like, oh, this is good, but it actually is good because we're expanding. And one thing about American beef is we're
Well, I mean,
very
it depends on who you are. If
well,
it's
even
good
for
when
the
the prices
consumer
go
in the
up.
long run, it's actually good because American beef is like very efficient, and that's part of the reason why Europe has had like restrictions on it. And we actually grow a heavier cow than most other countries. And that's without like steroids and all sorts of other shit, right? We do like we're all grass fed, and the thing is, oh, at least we are. I mean, I know a lot of people use grain, but specifically grass fed, right, is growing. And the reason why this is good for the consumer is we're able to grow, and all these other beef producers are able to grow at like an efficient rate. And so whenever the beef prices go down again, we're not actually going to be like hurt that much because yeah, the price is allowing us to expand the numbers we should have had already. Like we were lower cow herds where they weren't as healthy because you had less, all sorts of other logistics. And now once we get to a part where we'll plateau, we'll be able to maintain that, and then prices will decrease quite a bit once we hit the max. And both ranchers and the consumer are going to benefit in the long term. So it's a kind of exciting time as a rancher, at least.
Well, I hope you're right. I do know that it's becoming more difficult. Isn't it more difficult now to export beef because of the like tariff prices and the tariff wars?
No, actually, Europe had restrictions on how much beef we could export, and then that changed.
Yeah, it's like switching back and forth. It's like flip flopping.
Yeah, and then one of the things that I don't know if this is in the trade deal, but I know that the EU just changed this due to like pressure from the US, and there was restrictions on um certain like standards that were like really ridiculous. Like they didn't allow like certain vaccines like to be given to cattle. Like and here we were like, okay, we obviously have to give this vaccine because it's a problem regionally that y'all don't have, and they're like, no, whatever. And so that one, I know one of those got lifted. I don't actually export very much overseas, but I know that some my family has been benefiting quite a bit from new trade, like kind of like situations with other overseas countries, specifically Europe.
Okay. Well, I want to get into the general topic because I have
Yeah,
some more
so,
recent news stories. We're gonna have some like news stories that have been around for a while, but we're revisiting, commitments Trump made. We're revisiting commitments, checking in on them, stuff like that. But I just wanted to ask you right off the bat, what did you think of the first 6 months of Trump's presidency? Has
I,
he met your expectations?
for the most part, I'd say yeah. The things that I wanted to see like change, like I'm like I'm not a one issue voter, but I definitely vote locally. And the big one is twofold. Obviously, I'll admit my bias. I'm like a rancher, right? And it's hard to compete with ag. And I was the one thing I was dissatisfied with was that when Trump said, "Oh, I'm going to give in to big ag and hospitality, and maybe we could do a invitation system for these people here, as opposed to like wholesale, everybody goes." But as far as border security is A plus. Cartel violence is way fucking down in our region. Big fan of that. I don't know if that's going to stay the same if we invade Mexico, like he's suggesting, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, the issues I voted for, are good. I think tax breaks, I like those. Big Beautiful Bill's good, in my opinion, for that. And then, it gave more funding to immigration. So big fan of that as well. So I mean, those were the issues I voted on the most was economic and that. Oh, I guess guns, but he's never been a good guns president. So, well,
No, not particularly. We
yeah.
don't have
So
good guns politicians.
yeah, I mean, not a huge fan. I mean, what am I gonna do? But gotta pick the
But
devil you want.
so it seemed you said border, then you said immigration, and then the last one was what was the last one? Because you
Uh,
said border in reference to
econ,
cartels
the
and
economy, and
econ,
specifically like
just
taxes.
specifically taxes. Okay, gotcha. Because I imagine like not every aspect of the economy is exactly fantastic right now.
Yeah.
Um, but in reference to taxes, okay. So before I get into any of the recent stories, I want to make sure I talked about your things first. These tax cuts. Now, there are tax cuts. Some of them are being like them trying to freeze like previous tax cuts. Um, what about the sustainability of the tax cuts? I understand like people want tax cuts so they have more money in their pocket, but it seemed like what Trump wanted was to kind of like have his cake and eat it too. He wanted to both not make the significant cuts necessary in order to justify a drop in revenue, being able to do the tax cuts, and then he did the tax cuts anyway. And in fact, not only did he do the tax cuts, but then he shrunk the amount of cuts he was doing, which then was able to get more Republicans on board, but then made the deficit even worse. I mean, like almost 25% of our national debt is Trump debt. And that's right now. What's that going to be like in 3 years? I mean, that's like a hell of a legacy when you're talking about like sustainability. Like, yeah, you're not paying taxes now, but is great grandson Gibbs going to be paying the taxes? Great great grandbaby Gibbs.
Well, I will see. I guess. I mean, I kind of think yes that everybody's going to be paying fucking taxes and paying fucking on this debt for in perpetuity. I don't see us getting out of the debt anytime soon, unfortunately. I mean, I don't know if that's just Trump's fault. I feel like Dems add to the debt all the time, but
I mean, I understand like I'm not saying that Dems don't add to the debt, but Trump's made it worse on both accounts. Like this is the second term, and each time he goes in, and he doesn't only balloon the debt specifically like through one-time things. Like it'd be one thing if it's like we're gonna do this one-time investment in this. No, he does like a general deficit increase that creates a problem for the next administration to deal with. Like whoever comes after Trump, whether it be Vance, whether it be Marco
yeah, but that's what
Rubio,
every president does.
whether it be Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg, or Mom Dami's coup, whatever it's going to be, they're going to have to deal with this massive deficit that Trump is bringing to historic highs during peacetime.
I mean, how long have we been in a deficit though? Like,
It's not about how long
well,
we've
it
been in a
matters a little
deficit.
bit, because
Well, no, I
if we're gonna
understand.
add
Like,
to the deficit, and it's already been in a deficit, like, half a
yeah,
zero
but
is
I
still
mean,
zero, right? Like,
as a business owner, if you were losing money and then you started really losing money, and then somebody came up to you and said, "Yeah, but how long have you been losing money?" Well, that's a little bit different. We've ballooned it quite significantly, and when you talk about how much the deficit as a part of our national budget is growing, the amount of like they're collecting on the debt, and what I'm really scared of is the trust placed by investors in our bonds, because that bond trust has been shaky during Trump's
well,
time in office.
Well, as a business owner, then let's talk about that. Now, I wouldn't. But this is where I disagree. I agree that a government shouldn't be run like a business. But if we're going to run it like a business, then one would know as a business owner that debt can be an asset, right? So I'm just like seeing this here, going like, yeah, I don't know if I agree with this per se. Debt can be renegotiated. Debt can be paid on with interest.
No, I'm not
But
arguing that debt is evil. I'm arguing that massive amount of giveaways, which is what the government is now engaging in.
eventually somebody does have to pay for it.
Sure.
And it's weird that the
Well, we know
Democrats are
who's gonna
becoming the
pay for
party
it.
that has to make this argument, isn't it? Doesn't that kind of speak to
Well,
the affairs of things?
no, I'll tell you this, and this is, I think, where the confusion lies. Actually, is that what was one of Trump's stated goals, right? In the like beforehand, one of his promises. It wasn't a promise, but he said he
Get
wanted
rid of
to.
the national debt in 4 years. I remember that.
Well, that's one of them. He did say that, but he also said one of his other stated goals, which if he didn't think it was going to be possible.
Wait, when did he say that? I forgot. Do you remember when he said that?
No idea, but I definitely remember him saying something along those lines. But
Yeah.
I'm not gonna just argue over that. But like what I will say is one of the things he said was he wanted to potentially get us to a position where we could replace the IRS with tariffs, right? And like if you believe that's actually a goal of his, then giving tax cuts to people and then raising tariffs and raising revenue via tariffs is something. Like now, I know that we can argue whether or not tariffs are a good tool or not, but this is at least like him trying to fulfill a promise.
We
right?
know we can argue about whether this is a good way to tax people because tariffs are just another tax. We're saying
sure.
let's get rid of the. He's saying let's get rid of the tax service and let's tax people. It's. I mean, like it seems a little.
Well, the reason I brought up beef though is you build alternatives here at home. Like I mean, that's the argument, right?
This is it isn't. The problem is it's just even when if you look at the numbers of how much the tariffs are raising. Right, so we got like 25 billion here.
Well, we just had a surplus.
There.
We just had a surplus for the first time ever in June. So, or like not.
We're
ever,
not
in a long time.
We no longer have a deficit. You're saying our budget's no longer a deficit.
No, just the month for the month we posted a fucking surplus for the first time since Trump's first term, actually.
Okay, so we are in a deficit, a massive deficit, definitely still, and the budget that he passed is a deficit budget. It is extremely deficit. I mean, it's not only is it a deficit budget, but it's the type of budget that you would look at and say, "Oh, did we experience some crisis? Did we have to spend a lot of money?" This is a COVID budget, in fact.
I mean, to be fair, yeah, I think we are in a crisis. I think that's part of what Trump has sold his people.
Okay, well, no, don't argue that then don't come in here and try to argue with me. Well, no, we're actually going to go into a surplus. We're not in a deficit anymore.
Well, we did have a surplus.
We don't have a debt problem. We don't have a debt problem.
Nobody said that.
That's great. I had no clue.
That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying that at all. What I said is we posted a surplus for the first time in June since Trump's first term. Like, you know, like that's how you get ready. Okay, and here's the thing. I'll even grant the worst case scenario, right? In June, there was scheduling to where the month before got 70 billion more put onto it, right, than the June. So there was numbers that came out look positive, and I think July's numbers look positive too. Now, even if we had included those bad numbers, the bad number, which is the 70 billion number, moved it over to this whatever, it would have been a decrease from like 290 billion negative the month before, you know, which is understandable as for a president coming in. You know, they're going to enact their own policies. That's spend heavy. That's kind of every president does that. To the next month, dropping from that large number to only 70 billion, which is like 350 billion, I believe, to 70 billion. That's a massive shift, even if it wouldn't have been out positive. And since they did the numbers, it's all like, we'll just take the big hickey up front, and then it's going to be positive. So like, we're looking like next month's going to be a positive surplus as well. And the inflation rates are actually staying steady. We're at like 2.7 over the last 3 months right now. So like, and I think it's estimated 2.9, which is a way slower rate of inflation than what we had been at. So, I mean, these look like good, strong economic indicators. Do you disagree with that?
As of June, we have a budget deficit of $1.3 trillion for the first 9 months, of the fiscal year 2025. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
So we still are digging a deeper hole. The deficit is growing. You can try to point by a month thing, but this is still a problem. And I'm not saying that there isn't any positive economic indicators. There's also some negative economic indicators, some so negative that they're truths that the government cannot state out loud and you have to be fired over. 1 second. That's true. America. I appreciate the tier 1 sub. But I understand saying something like, hey, I want to get the government, like the economy started up, but we're both then agreeing that this is a crisis that we have to be in. We're passing debt on to the next people, to the next generation. This isn't a question of a surplus. We are in a deficit. We are still in some amount,
how do you get rid of it,
at least entering a debt crisis. Well, you either cut or you grow.
Well,
and
okay. So if,
or
if so
a
you
combination of.
right, and then what happens is you would post month to month. You would have surpluses over time to eat away at the deficit. Correct? Like you would have,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so you start moving to the black. So, okay, even like I said, the indication, if they had included the bad numbers and we hadn't posted the surplus this month, the deficit number would have been like, I don't know, something like 250 billion less than the month before, right? So it would have shown a trend. And now, if you really look at it, if you want to go back a year, this is a 301% increase compared to June of 2024, right? Like you're just arguing that, okay, maybe it's bad, and we might be able to see this in the future. But I'm arguing, well, look, we're seeing now inflation rates haven't gone higher. We're projected to have like a lower inflation rate over the year than we thought we were going to have. There looks like there's rate of return. I can point to specific industries like beef that's expanding exactly under tariffs because they're protected now. Like I feel like the economy is showing like the strength of the bones of what Trump has promised. Like
So
that's a good thing.
So there were these monthly budget surpluses in January of 2022, April of 2022, April of 2023, August of 2023, April of 2024, and September of 2024. Sounds like the Biden economy was roaring, and we didn't have a deficit, and we were on our way to getting rid of the deficit problem here. We didn't. We were on the right path, right?
No, I would disagree. I mean, the Biden economy was abysmal. There's a reason why they voted that as like number 2 issue after the border, or number 1 issue or number 1 issue, depending on the pollster. I feel like when
I'm not
you
talking
can
about
lie
the
to the
vibes.
American, you can lie to the American public.
You're arguing right now with me about the numbers. You're saying that a surplus reported for this 1 month, which by the way, the Congressional Budget Office said wouldn't have occurred if the government didn't make the payments in May that were supposed to be made in June. But that surplus has occurred, and now because of that surplus, the deficit problem isn't as bad. We're actually on the path to fixing it. When the deficit problem has gotten worse because of the Trump budget, because of the big beautiful bill that Trump has passed. And so I'm saying that just because you're talking about this budget surplus, which has been reported all throughout the Biden presidency, and I'm sure if I keep going back, I'll find it for other presidencies as well. I think you're using
negative.
I think you're using this as a scapegoat to get out of the
No.
consequence of giveaway spending.
Hold on, that's not at all what I'm doing. I'm looking at notes right here saying that they reported a 1.7 trillion deficit for the entire Biden administration. What I'm saying is Trump had the heavy spending up front, and now that the policy, now that the policies have are going into effect, we're seeing the tariffs being used. We're seeing, which are a big reason why we have the surplus this time, right? We have the tariffs going into effect. We have the big beautiful bill. Yeah, you're getting the hickey up front, but now we're kind of moving out into this future where things are going into effect. The Fed's sitting here saying the interest rates aren't going up. Versus with Biden, you had a surplus every once in a while, but then overall it's just crashed. This looks like it's gone down, and now we've hit the where we want, and now it's going to start peaking based off economic indicators that I've seen.
You've got a report of 1 month surplus, and you're using that as an indication, which, by the way, the Congressional Budget Office again said wouldn't have happened if they made the payments in June instead of May. But we have that surplus for that 1 month, and you're saying that's a strong indication. But all these other months that I'm pointing to,
even then,
that's not an indication of anything.
I even caveated that it would have been a massive. Even caveated that with the scheduling change, it would have still been a massive change from the month before, like 250 million in the right direction.
There has been no economic growth that would make up for the massive. No, you didn't let me finish my sentence, Gibbs. You're so eager. There has been no economic growth that would be able to account to the amount of tax cuts and government spending that was part of the big beautiful bill, and especially not to make up for the other big giveaway items that Trump still has on his piggy bank list, like the $175 billion Golden Dome air defense system to protect the United States, which would actually probably end up being more expensive and have to include the Canadians as well, and they would have to dedicate tens of billions of dollars that they're certainly not just going to be able to pull out of their pockets. Are we going to have to subsidize that as well? And that's just one of many projects. What about our rebuilding of the Gaza Strip into all these different shopping malls or other projects that he wants to get us involved in? So look, I'm not saying that there isn't any good job numbers, but let's not hocus pocus our way out of saying, yes, Trump is a deficit president. He was a deficit president in the first term, and he's even bigger, but deficit president in the second term.
Well, hold on. So, all right, not to be the lib here, because I think that's on the lefty here, but let me just pretend to be one for a second. If we were to do the Golden Dome, that would provide thousands and thousands of government jobs or contractor jobs to all sorts of people. When did the left suddenly hate government spending? Like, this is crazy. You'll only hate government spending when it's not done the way y'all want it. That's great or purposeful, like like USA.
You're right. I like government spending when it builds roads, not when it takes all my money and puts it in a big fire pit, and then they say ooga booga and dance around it. That's what I like my government spending to do. Yes, there's certain ways I like my money spent, and other ways I don't.
Are you saying that a 16% tax cut for people making under $50K a year is not going to affect the average person?
I think it will affect people in certain ways, but I think that other actions that Trump is taking is going to counteract that by having certain increases in consumer prices that are going to end up blunting the desired effects and therefore leaving us with a deficit and not the desired economic growth that would be able to make it up.
Well, let's just examine that, right? So you and I think we can both agree that tariffs and economic policy and wars all affect behaviors of people, right? So, like, for example, Spam in World War II became popular because in all these islands, because the supply chains were disrupted. It was easier to get Spam than, have local meats, right? Okay, we can probably agree on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now, today, Spam is actually having a big resurgence overall, right? And the islands, they've never let Spam go. They love Spam. It's great. It's kept them in business. And what has happened is this becomes part of your culture. You switch items, just like here in America, we're finding out. So we're not going to be able to get these chemicals from other countries as cheap. You know what we can do? We can go to hemp. We can go to other things that are local, and we find alternatives that benefit Americans, provide American jobs, just like I mentioned with the beef industry. We're growing. Like, this is exactly what the tariffs are designed to do. It's getting you to have behaviors.
You're like a Juche guy.
I mean, I'm just pointing out that Juche, that's crazy. That's a good one, but no. I'm just saying that whenever people have behaviors, you can do stuff that like increase profitability here at home.
No, I get it. Patriotic American beans. Patriotic.
I'm just saying. No, I mean, do you think it's bad to grow American food and American byproducts here?
Hey, I just think that there's certain things that are going to be much more difficult to make here, and it makes sense to make them collaborative efforts. Especially, for example, like the way he rolled out these tariffs was how you would say like brain dead. When you it's one thing to like I'm going to tariff these products that are essentially entirely made overseas and then imported to the United States, right? And then maybe at the end, they slap a U.S. Made in America sticker or something in some third country to make it not seem like it was made. Like, so, it's different tricks. Instead, he tariffs all these different. He does such sweeping tariffs that we end up tariffing the complex parts that are necessary for U.S. machine good, like the CNC machine parts and like all this different stuff that are necessary for people who make goods in the United States. And so even the companies that have 70 to 80% of their process made in the United States, but have certain complex parts made in Germany where they have certain specialists who can make it cheap, or literally in some instances, the only people who can make these machines, they have to pay much higher prices and there's no alternative. And so that passes down to the consumer. And that not only affects the people who work in those businesses, where there have been people who have told, like, yeah, we don't know if you're going to be laid off right now. There have been people who have been laid off. It's a question of I want there to be an American manufacturing base somewhere. But if you just decide to come out with a sledgehammer and start swinging everywhere when we have these complex trade systems, and just pretend America can do it all because we're bald eagles and bacon grease and big monster trucks, it's gonna end bad for the American consumer, and we're a consumer's economy.
So, but you agree that we do need some of these industries here, right? Like for example, I'll give Biden credit for one. I don't think he actually did enough for this, but like I'll give him credit for one, like the CHIPS Act, right? It brought, we want more chips manufactured here in the U.S. Like, you would agree that's something we probably should have more of, right? It's a national security issue at this point, right? Like, so.
No, I agreed with that. And that's why I didn't like when Trump came in and then rolled back the CHIPS Act that Biden was pushing through. It seemed like he was just doing it out of spite than even out of what is his own declared national ethos about bringing back manufacturing to the United States. Or my main problem with Trump's ethos isn't even that manufacturing in the United States. I think there's some manufacturing that's better in other countries. It's better for us to just trade for it. I think it's cheaper. I think that there's going to be a problem making it just affordable in the United States for Americans or the people who we would want to sell it to in certain types of products. And again, specialization. There's certain shit that just the Japanese know how to make. Okay, they figured it out in some temple somewhere, and we haven't figured it out yet. We just like we figured out something in Silicon Valley that we're the only people they can come to.
Buddha over here giving the secret knowledge or what? No,
it's like, but and so I think my main problem with Trump is all of this. He does it through penalty. He does it like McKinley. It's something that McKinley regretted. President McKinley, of course, somebing that somebody that Trump respects quite a lot. And so if maybe I liked the idea of, hey, if we want chip manufacturing here, then we try to incentivize chip manufacturing through grants or trying to direct projects or government contracts, not, hey, we're going to tax you into oblivion. And I'm not against any tariff for national security reasons, but these were tariffs done without congressional approval, without congressional oversight. It's called for national security reasons, and they covered from everything from like different like agricultural products to like islands that didn't have people who lived on it. Yeah. So it just became very hard for me to take this like it was done in a competent manner or with a real interest in growing our manufacturing base, or that they really even consulted many people who worked in these industries.
Well, I can't speak to all these different industries, right? But I can, like I said, I can speak to beef. I'm seeing real change there. But let me give you one example, right? I did like that Biden tried to do something with the CHIPS Act. I don't necessarily know if I agreed with Trump repealing it, but I will say that he did something that made me feel slightly better about it, right? And this is going to kind of touch on foreign policy just a little bit, but was when he got the peace deal with Russia, not Russia, with Rwanda and the Congo.
Please.
Yeah, so here's a big thing on this, though. Major contractors now have deals with both Congo and Rwanda to move into these areas and provide exclusive rights to the U.S. to these rare earth minerals. Like that's securing the strategic pipeline for these things that we need for these semiconductors and whatnot. It seems like he's taking actions to ensure that we're going to be able to produce this locally now because we're ensuring the supply line with what used to be a Russian ally in the Congo and Rwanda, who is a perennial U.S. and French ally. You know, so like, I don't know. It seems like he's taking steps at the same time, and maybe there's a little bit of method to the madness. But I see local industries growing and expanding. Like hemp in Texas is another one. You know, it's expanding. Rapidly.
Here's the thing. It's one thing to say, okay, he wants to secure the supply line of these raw minerals, and then he adds tariffs on those very raw minerals. Like it's just some of these things seem contradictory. It's like when I heard Trump say, for example, America losing world reserve currency would be like losing a war. My God, what a warning! That's something that's basically like a emergency flag for the base to look at and say we better protect our reserve currency status, because if we lose it, what will that mean it will mean doom for our country. It'll be like Pearl Harbor or something awful. Then within a few months we have them talking about things like, actually, if we lowered the value of the US dollar, then it would make us more competitive on the manufacturing front. And I think that a lot of times in Trump land, there's these, not only is Trump used kind of like a vessel by the people around him, and they undermine him like Pete Hegseth constantly, even during this administration, which was something I was told wouldn't happen this time. But it seems like a lot of these interests are contradictory, where there's like, you got to choose one. You can either have a low value dollar to make us more competitive in industry, or you can reserve us as the world reserve currency and have a strong dollar that allows where people like trust the bond and etc. But these things are a lot of times they're contradicting each other.
Well, I just for because I was curious, I just looked up if we're tariffing Rwanda and the Congo on raw materials, and it looks like we're only tariffing currently from a treaty in the 1950s. The Congo 5%, and Rwanda's got no tariffs on raw materials. Some of the other stuff they have high stuff on. But that looks due to other stuff, not Trump related. But regardless, the raw material is what we really want from those countries anyway. So we don't need their clothing. We're not getting our clothing from Rwanda and Congo, but we are getting our like lithium and all these other rare earth minerals. And so I don't know. It seems like once again he's taking actions that seem calculated. Like what's the island that had no people or had like 7 people on it or whatever? It's like a country. I don't remember which one the one y'all talk. Yeah, but that's also a rare earth mineral mining site. That's like its own country and it's its own economic zone because it's taking advantage of the shit. So like there's more to these stories when y'all just bring up this thing like, oh, it's an island with nobody on it. Well, yeah, okay, it's an island that's been declared a special economic zone that's like providing a rare earth mineral that's being taxed. Like, okay, well, like not being benefiting us.
So how did it benefit us?
Well, now that they don't get the benefit of their special economics, or they do, but now they have to pay a tariff when
So
exporting there to us.
now we tax Americans on the raw mineral.
Well, now at least we get a
That's-
cut of the pie. I mean, and then this is another thing.
How
right?
is that? Wait, how is that? How so? If the government came to you and took an extra 20% out of your taxes, right? Would you describe that as at least we get another cut out of the pie?
Well, no, but I'll tell you how it's
No,
different, though.
but if I want to import minerals to start an American manufacturing company to like something to build something here, because you usually import minerals to build something here if you're importing minerals.
Sure.
But then the government taxes me 20% on that import. It's actually higher, but we'll just say 20%
Sure.
on that import. And at least we're getting a cut on the pie. I don't understand how this is
I'll tell you how.
philosophically consistent.
Well, it's simple. Let's just pick lithium, right? Right? Okay, what does that go into? Like, we see batteries, we see superconductors, all these things. Okay, if I'm making less than $50,000 a year, and I get a 16% increase in my revenue because I'm not having to pay that in taxes, right? Okay, cool. Now, I get to go to the supermarket and choose what to spend. Okay, great. And I can buy more AA batteries, and I could buy these things and put them in my toys for my kids, or I could buy a new iPad or whatever that's maybe gone up in price, and they could be, on the phone. Or, check this out, I could buy them toys that are not going to be batteries, they'll go outside, or I could buy them a water gun, or I could buy alternatives that are made in America that's not using these products. Like, it changed behavior, and these people will now have more money in their pockets.
You just told me
Like-
that those are raw minerals. Raw minerals
yes.
are raw minerals. There's
Right.
not like
Raw
like
minerals.
they come out of there like if there's a raw mineral,
Right.
that's it. Like there's not an alternative. There's just a raw mineral. Like there's not like an
You
alternative to copper. There's
understand
just copper.
you understand the point that I'm making, right?
I understand that if you're in a store and the products are already made, but we're talking about
Okay,
the
how do those-
tariffing of raw
okay, right,
minerals.
and-
So
and-
these are
And so, is the products that don't use those same raw minerals, are those products going to go up in price?
the products that use those raw minerals. Yes, they're going to
No,
go up.
the
in
ones
price
that
to
use the
tariff raw
product,
minerals.
yeah, okay, those are right. And then the products that don't use those raw minerals are going to stay the same price, decrease in price as more sold. What happens with those?
They'll probably stay the same price.
They'll stay the same price or decrease as bigger bulk items are bought in general, right? That's how grocery markets, right? So what happens is people stop buying the item that's more expensive and they start buying the alternative item that's cheaper, which once again stimulates the American economy and puts more money in people's pockets. Like that's kind of the argument here. Is these people? The argument the left keeps making.
So you're saying
making,
that Americans will be more thrifty at the store?
No, they'll just be more
kind of like. This sounds to me.
No, they're not going to be more
almost like,
thrifty. They're just going to be.
This sounds to me like what is it? Komolsky Pravda. I forget the exact pronunciation of the Russian state outlet. But when I listen to them, like it's like, oh, Russian grandmas know how to get more out of 2 eggs now.
Well, that's not what I'm saying either.
It shows the strength of the Russian economic mindset.
That's not what I'm talking about, though. You're kind of conflating 2 points with the other, right? The thing about Americans is we look for alternatives. It's not that we're being more thrifty. It's that we have product A that's whatever price from China, and product B, which is American, and now this product is being sold more, and so prices go down.
Okay. So let's say that there's 2 products. We'll do it in this way, and then we'll move on to another topic.
Sure.
Let's say there's 2 products, product A, product B. Product A uses copper, product B doesn't. They do the same thing, right? And before, product A was cheaper because they use copper. But now they got like knocked out because copper tariffs. So now the other one's cheaper. Now, they're being purchased more. Now everybody has to purchase product B because product B is much cheaper. So more people purchase product B. So people who sell product B have less stock. Therefore, the product B goes up in price too. Not only does the product A go up in price because of the tariff, but the competitor, seeing the ability to both take advantage of the market capture and the fact that his stock, as his competition has been knocked out, is going to be grabbed after, could see their prices go up as well. So even if you're not directly affected by the tariffs, the downstream effects could also see prices raised for your products.
But what you're also forgetting is that there's not just product A and B, there's product C and D, which D is a whole new product that's just made domestically with domestic stuff that does all these things plus more, and C is a totally alternate thing that's an alternate system than what the product is. And people are like, well, now this is viable, and I'm going to buy it.
Product E is a super duper gun that goes through your block move.
Okay, I'll use an example. Well, you brought up copper.
Goes much harder than yours.
This is a great example. You brought up copper. Why are tankless water heaters more popular than ever?
tankless water heaters. Why?
One, they offer you an economic efficiency. You don't have to keep the tank hot heated at all times. One, right? Two, it's also partially because a lot of the older water heaters had copper piping attached to them and whatnot, and copper is more expensive now. So now we're getting more modern tankless water heaters that don't require the old school plug-ins with water heater. Like, this is just the evolution of things over time. Like, yes, one thing becomes more expensive. People evolve a different direction of tech. Like, that's just what happens. And like, y'all are arguing that Americans aren't
Things
innovative
just
enough to
get
do
more
this.
expensive. Okay. Well, look, I'm not.
Well,
my
yeah,
argument
that's
is
good
that
of Democrat
Americans
policy, but
cannot
sure.
survive. My argument is not that people cannot survive with their products more expensive. My argument is it'd be better if their products were less expensive. It'd be better for working class people. Like, the main way that a government can hurt their people is by making the things they buy more expensive. It means that they can buy less for their children.
But
It means that
what state do you live in?
You're gonna let me. I live in the state of Maryland.
Okay. What's the standard of living in Maryland? Like, what's the average cost? Like, you have to live. Like, I know California is outrageously high, right? Like, and I only ask that because in Texas, where I live, the state of state of living is very cheap.
Why?
Like,
What is this avoidance?
No,
What
it's
is,
not avoidance. It's because this is directly to your point that you just made. If the worst thing they could do is to make things more expensive, then you're saying that California is the most evil state in the United States because they've put in many regulations that have made everything so expensive. Like, this is like counter against your point. Yeah. Like, Texas is cheap as fuck.
You didn't hear I didn't finish my point, so you didn't counter shit.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
My point. What? God damn it! You made me forget my point. Actually,
my bad. The ADHD kicks in.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, sorry. If you make things more expensive generally without raising the amount of income people are bringing, because if the community makes more money, things are going to get more expensive. It's just it tends to happen that way, as economic growth goes. But if there's no economic growth and things are getting more expensive, you're whittling away people's dollars. And so my comment isn't that, things will get more expensive, people will continue to adapt. Is if you keep putting more barriers between people and their products, whether it be the raw minerals that make them or the finished products themselves, it's going to mean an increase in costs. And you need to balance that out by an increase in the standard of living. And the argument essentially was that we're going to see the growth domestically in the United States in such a way that it will make up for it. It will recover for the lost cost. But that lost cost is still there, and we haven't seen the results of this yet. And while Trump keeps talking about like committed investments, due to the fact he keeps flip-flopping on these tariffs, which are, I already think, a flawed strategy in their own, the fact that he keeps flip-flopping on them means that investors are holding back on putting in their money. And it's only going to get worse now that the question of whether or not we can get reliable government economic data is being floated by people on Wall Street to, foreign investors.
Examine your claim, right, and come back to what you just said once again, is if things are going to get more expensive for the average person, that's bad. Okay, let's take Maryland, because I just looked this up, versus Texas, where I live, right, and see what their overall economic cost of living is. Cost of living in Texas is generally considered lower than national average. We're ranked 15th lowest in the nation, right? And so you can live off of and live well off of $45,000 a year, right? Maryland is 22% higher than the median, right? So basically your dollar gets less bang for its buck than it does in Texas, right? You actually are worth less when you leave Texas and go to Maryland. And this is because Democrat policies have raised the prices overall on everything, right? And Trump is giving tax cuts. He's following Texas' lead. He's trying to give no tax on tips. He's trying to do things like get rid of income tax, or he's like floating it. Things like this, right? And we're sitting here seeing the cost of living go way down in a state like Texas, despite all these tariffs and things. Versus we see things like Maryland, California, states through the roof. So like, this is contradictory to all your whole point.
Gibbs, I live in the wealthiest majority black county in the entire country.
That's good.
Maryland is a very wealthy state.
It's
actually a stereotype of Marylanders. Yes, it is more expensive, but it's also because we're outside of the nation's capital, so a lot of people need,
so is Virginia,
to buy up housing here. Yeah, so is Northern Virginia has pretty expensive rent. It's the Delmarva, the Delmarva area. I'm pretty familiar with it, but if you're connected to the metro system, then yeah, you have a bump in the rent, especially as new
What
buildings
about
get put up.
Baltimore?
Baltimore has a rent problem too, yeah.
I
But it depends on what part of Baltimore you live in. If you live in the upscale part,
I'm
like,
just
I'm not saying we don't have a high cost. And what is this an argument again? Your argument is, hey, Dylan, you're saying that Trump should,
no. I just find it
not
rich
do
that the
things that
Dems
bring
are
up
talking about
prices.
this. Like
What do you
y'all,
mean the Dem? Okay, I'm Mr. Democrat Gibbs. Okay, you're gonna
Well,
answer for
it-
everything
I'm not
Republicans did.
saying you gotta
Okay,
do that.
I understand that. You're
I'm
Mr.
not-
Republican now. You're not Gibbs.
sure.
You're Mr. Republican. I don't know your name. I don't know your fucking face. Your name is Lindsey Goddamn Graham, and that's it.
No, I'm not saying that though. Here, what I am saying, it's interesting to me that whenever you yourself have promoted policies that like will lead to more higher costs, and then we're sitting here saying Trump is like going to cut costs like for the lowest income,
What policies
50,000
have
or
I
lower.
supported? What policies have I supported that are gonna raise costs so significantly?
Do you believe in social programs?
A certain amount of social programs, yeah.
That's going to raise costs. How about minimum wage
Okay.
increases?
It depends on the state. It depends on the county.
Okay, so in the case, well, okay, that's fair. I'll give you that one, I guess. But but the ones where you want it to raise, then it's going to raise costs. Like, I mean, like these are like I'm not like trying to do a gotcha. I'm just saying
Okay, wait.
the product of these things
it's
are
not
raised
evil.
costs.
It isn't evil in and of itself to raise costs. It's evil to raise costs without raising the value people hold.
Okay, like I don't have income tax anymore in Texas, right? I think Maryland's is 2 to 5.75. Would you agree that y'all having to pay that income tax is less money in your pocket to spend on things? Like that's going to raise costs overall, right?
Sorry, I didn't hear any of that. Somebody was calling me short on the internet. What?
Don't let them get you. No, I'm saying, okay, I don't pay income tax here now, right? And in Maryland, y'all pay 2 to 5%, 5 to 7.5%, right? Depending. Would you agree that in those cases, that's going to raise costs?
If we raise the income tax?
Yeah, it's going to raise costs on things.
Yeah, it'll raise costs on things.
So,
yeah.
and did you vote in your local election?
I mean, it depends which election, but yeah, I voted
You
in my
have-
local
you
elections.
have
I vote. I am a frequent voter when I
Okay,
can.
and you generally vote Dem, I'm assuming, right? You don't vote for the Republican. I mean, you might like some of the lower ballot ones, but sure.
Them are independent, yeah.
Okay, so then you voted for policies that are going to raise costs. And so when you're sitting here telling me, oh, Trump
So,
bad because
Gibbs.
raise costs, I'm like, this is what your platform has been. Like, it
Okay,
doesn't, it
Gibbs,
rings
Gibbs.
hollow to me.
Gibbs, okay, if I say I want a 2% sales tax increase, if that money is spent on increasing the quality of our state's roads, then people can connect one thing to another thing, and how the road quality increase and how that helps our transportation infrastructure can lead to stronger economic growth in comparison to what value was taken out of your pocket. That it's going to lead to more businesses and more transportation and more commerce in your state, especially as we are a port state. We actually, because of the Francis Scott Key disaster, most people know about it just because of that. But we do have a major port in Baltimore. So I think that it's a question of what you do. If we just tax people and then we spend it on, giant money fire or the Maryland crab dome system to protect us from Virginians, then yeah, I think it's a silly use of funds. But I think that Democrats in the state champion trying for more education investment because we want to stay at the top of the country when it comes to quality of education. That makes sense. That's something that Marylanders were pretty proud of, was their quality of education. We don't want to slip in the rankings, and it's a big fight between Democrats and
Well,
Republicans in the state.
You mentioned something interesting though with the roads, right? Like, so you actually do understand the transitory. I can't even say it the way the argument that Trump is making with things. Oh, you're gonna have to switch over, right? When you do construction, would you agree that local businesses can be hurt whenever it's harder to get to them due to construction, and oftentimes they have to close down? Like we know that's true, right? Like that just happens, right? And then what happens is those businesses get shut down. Then the freeway comes in or whatever, and oh, the exit's right here. Or say the freeway is further down and the exit's further down, and the business no longer is getting the business it had before, and they had to move to a different location further down, or they had to close down. Like this is a transitory. So you're actually arguing for the same thing Trump is via the tariffs and his economic policy. You're just arguing it from like, oh, we're going to build these roads. It's the same concept. You do get that, right?
I believe that there should be a way to tax people, but I don't think that the way to tax people is to place that tax on the international trade level. I believe it makes much more sense to place it either on the corporate level or to place it like direct. Like if you want a certain amount of money from a corporation, just take that money directly from it. I think that these a lot of times end up hurting the consumer more than if we were just to do a more direct model.
Well, that's what Texas does.
And definitely when you base it on consumption and we're a consumerist economy.
Well, yeah, the Texas does that. I agree with you. We take money right at the tap from the oil companies, and it pays for our public universities.
So I think that I'm not. I understand that tariffs in some instances can be useful. I just don't think that they have been useful at all in achieving what Trump wants to achieve, and the way that he's gone about it has been just a mess. I think that I understand that people want like manufacturing back in the United States, but I don't think that the back and forth, you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out, is going to inspire people to place their money in manufacturing here.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, I feel like we've talked econ quite a bit and you wanted to move on. Do you want to move on to foreign policy since I think tariffs kind of segue into that?
Sure, let's move on to foreign policy. Well, I have a list of
sure, whatever you want to do.
Recent news stories. Let's go through that quickly, if we can. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let's see. Oh yes, I gotta ask you. What do you think about the DC takeover, or just Trump's treatment of DC? Period.
I don't know the on the ground or anything. I've seen the police union was in favor of it, but I've seen like other people aren't. Like the attorney general for DC wasn't in favor. I don't know how much of that's like real upset versus like partisan kind of like thing. It does seem like there have been a couple high profile like kind of attacks on what was that ICE guy and then that other guy. I guess there's been two. I guess is the one that comes to mind. I haven't been following him as close as I probably should.
Big Balls got attacked.
Yeah, Big Ball or whatever, and then. I feel that he might feel it's necessary to like do it to help like.
Do you believe he should get a Presidential Medal of Freedom, as someone suggested? Big Balls.
I mean, I honestly haven't followed the story close enough to give you a opinion. I can Google real quick and find out. Attacked.
Can we take a moment of prayer for Big Balls?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is Big Balls the guy that went and defended the people? Is that what he was?
He was with Doge. He was the Doge kid. Who got jumped in DC.
Yeah, I mean, if he just got jumped, I don't think he needs a medal. But I think it is. I think it is indicative that people are attacking like people they perceive to be associated with Trump. Though it could be like.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it could also just be
random.
Violence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think either way, this is the kind of the problem when people say numbers are down. And I'll say this with like here locally, like violent numbers are down. But part of that is because cartels, I think, are worried about, Trump's over here talking about invading Mexico, right? Like literally, he just talked about it this week, right? And the cartels, like they'll say they'll fight, and they will. But if you've watched any recent interviews they've given, they're all like, yeah, we're gonna lose, but we're gonna make it as bloody as possible. And I feel like they're kind of in this like waiting period, right, where they're not doing anything. Like I'm not gonna be one of these guys that are Republican who's gonna sit here and go, oh, the cartels aren't gonna lash back in like the U.S. They're absolutely gonna try to do that, right? And so when people go, oh, numbers down, and the same thing with D.C., where I know the Dems are like, oh, numbers down. I don't know that it is necessarily numbers down. It seems like the police union is indicating that there's a lot of like not actual policing, budget cuts, and they're like not enforcing laws, and that's why numbers are down because they don't have the manpower and they don't have like all sorts of stuff. So like it could be a tale of two stories here, and maybe they do need it. I don't know. Like I'm not a DC like expert on this specific one.
I mean, to me, it seems pretty clear that like the numbers that are being reported, it would be pretty fantastical for them to be completely manufactured. It's not impossible that there are unreported crimes that happens, and that's something you try to account for. But the idea that unreported crime could account for a 36% drop from 2023 to 2024, and then a 26% drop from 2024 to 2025, which I mean that's quite a substantial drop in that time period, and it makes sense. As COVID started to climb down, there was a trend of violence across the country during COVID for a whole host of socioeconomic factors that we don't have time to get into. So it kind of aligns with national trends. the data would be pretty hard to just kind of manufacture out of thin air. I'm willing to say maybe the numbers are up 10 or down 10 one way or the other, and I have no idea because, I didn't do the numbers myself. But it is not as bad as it was in 2023. It was really bad in 2023. And when we talk about like murders, like we would have to be talking about like 100 dead bodies that are just missing and we just don't know where they are. Like that would be a pretty substantial jump in order to get to the numbers of 2023 that we just don't know are happening here. So it would have to be that like the cops are just like really dodging bodies or not finding bodies. They're being hidden like it's the wire in the buildings, which I mean, of all places, Baltimore, but
so
not in DC.
Well, I can't speak for DC. I'll speak for like San Antonio, right, where I live, right? And I've seen the police be much, much, much more proactive than they have been in years past. Like they're like cleaning up homeless camps. They're like having the cities putting hostile architecture. Like they're like building up areas that have like not
I
seen.
hate the hostile architecture. It's one of those moments where I become like I feel like my public vagrancy like gets in my hand. Like I just want to like it's hostile to everyone, not just the homeless. It's uncomfortable to sit on.
Yeah, well, when I say hostile architecture, I'm not talking about benches. They're like literally putting rocks underneath the bridges so they can't sleep there. Like, and we have what we look like. They look like zombies. They're terrifying. Like, in fact, one tried to like come and move in behind my house. Like, there's a gap between mine and my neighbors, and so they kept like camped out, and they were like creeping in kids' windows and stuff. And it was like I don't think they were because they were pedo or anything. I think it was just because they were, drugged up. But like it's bad, but I see the police being much more proactive. And then I look at the crimes, and crime, like they're saying, like crimes are down for certain statistics, like property and violent, like physical violence. However, shootings are up, and so is vandalism, right? So it's like, what is down? Like, yeah, maybe crime's down overall, but like,
I mean,
if murders are up.
We can go crime by crime. For example, in 2023, the big thing was carjackings. For July, that's down 87%. And comparative to 2023. If we're talking about murders, that's down. If we're talking about assault, that's down. If we're talking about sexual crimes, that's down 50%. So I mean, across the board, generally speaking,
From like month to month,
violent crime,
like, from year to year.
year to year. The 87% was is me talking about in comparison to July of 2023. It's down 87% when it comes to like carjacking. Let me be clear. Let me. Okay, maybe these. I don't know if we need to really like spice the numbers too much. Let's say they're all cut in half, right? Let's moderate them all and say that the drops weren't that big or whatever, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? It doesn't. The specifics of the number. I think the general trend though seems to indicate that crime isn't as bad as it was 2 years ago. Which, as somebody who lives outside of DC, that seems to be what I perceived as well, and seems to be what most of the people I know seems to have perceived. That post-COVID, it's starting to calm down. Is the idea, at least around these parts. It's actually, funnily enough, according to the numbers, if you want to splice the numbers over this, it makes sense because this may be a little troublesome. It's actually lower now than it was for all of the first term of Trump.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not familiar with these crime rates, but like this does seem a little bit like Could you admit this is a possibility? Like in California, where they have, it's not a crime, or it's not a something you could get with other than a fine, so you steal over $1,100 and like whatever, and then we go, theft is down in San Diego. I was like, well, the business owners are like, no, it's not.
I mean,
or is the DA not charging them? Like,
there's problems of like youth crime and stuff like that. But like, what people were talking about in 2023 were these carjackings. They were these murders, man. People were worried about the bodies hitting the street, right? And so maybe there's like a certain type of like vagrancy, or like maybe graffiti crime. Maybe there's like a certain type of maybe some like porch theft. I have no clue. Like I mean, I haven't looked at every single, but I looked at the things that I thought of, like, murder, rape, the type of stuff that is my first thing of what I want the cops to stop from doing. And it seems to be on a general downward trend. Now, look, I'll understand if somebody still is like, we have a lot more work to do in DC, because we still have a lot more work to do in DC. Muriel Bowser has reacted to this deployment of troops into DC. Kind of like in a weird way. Number one, she hasn't like rejected it all. She's like said, well, if this can help, it can help. And this is a city that voted over 90% for the Democrats in the election. Very, very Democrat city. But I think that's partially due to I think she would appreciate some more resources, to be quite frank. Just like Maryland would like some, some FEMA aid for our flood recovery. That would have been nice, but that got denied. But also, it's because DC is in an extremely vulnerable position. It's not a state. It doesn't have legislative representatives, and Trump is somebody who does not care about their independence or the local jurisprudence or he really doesn't believe that DC locals should be able to manage their own affairs. And so I think she's being very careful about it. And DC locals hate Trump in reference to that. Over 70% of DC locals say Trump needs to get less involved in DC local affairs.
I mean, would you agree though that if like Trump's got like employees and they're getting attacked, that he probably needs to do something about it? I don't know if it's like take over DC.
I understand the instinct, but like if I went, okay, let's say I went, and I'm trying to like bring this to home, and I'm not saying it's good this guy got attacked. I hope they arrest the dudes, and I hope they bring big balls.
What would
big
be
justice,
a fair compromise?
Okay? But a fair compromise would be investigating the people who committed the crime and arresting them and throwing them in prison, because that's what happened. Just because a public official got attacked does not. Okay, here's my problem. If I got mugged and then shot in DC, that wouldn't be a news story. I wouldn't get President Trump weeping over me. I wouldn't get President Trump talking on national TV. But because it's big balls, we all have to say, woe is me. And now the fucking military's in Washington, D.C., instead of it just being a normal police investigation over a crime, over somebody being assaulted. And so I think that the compromise with this person being arrested, or at least having some sort of open conversation about what the path forward should be. This came out of nowhere. He kind of just jumped on this and he announced it, and that was kind of that. And there was no really public dialogue. There was no question of whether the DC locals want this, whether this is a question of what the locals want. I mean, it being the nation's capital, a lot of people kind of use that as a way to kind of just discredit locals for what their interests are or what they care about. And now I'm seeing feds going around interrogating people who are sitting on their porches, smoking cigarettes, putting flashlights in their face, saying, what is that, a marijuana cigarette? Like, this is the type of stuff we got federal workers doing now because this wasn't coordinated properly and we didn't take our time, and they couldn't think of something good enough for these people to do right off the bat.
For one, I do want to disagree with your premise a little bit. I think that you're not giving yourself enough credit. If you or I have a smaller following than you, but you have a decent following. If you or I got attacked in a city, depending, like maybe it was in our home turf, like say I got attacked in, I don't know, Austin or Corpus or something, or Austin's a great example. Say I got attacked in Austin, right? I almost guarantee my name would be on Governor Abbott's desk by the end of the day, and he would be calling in the Texas National Guard to secure the city. Like, just because we're like politically aligned. I think just like you, if you got attacked in like, I don't know, Maryland by like some like Republican leaning people or something, they would sit here and be like, this is a martyr. I think that like there's no way you can't tell me, especially when we're both public personas to some degree, that they wouldn't do that. I think either side of ours would like pick us up and run with it. But like I don't know. I think that's maybe what's happening here.
There's an opportunity to use us for political points, but what I'm saying, my point wasn't even about partisanship. My point is I'm a nobody in reference to the people who hold the real power. And so when we get hurt, it's nothing. When they get hurt, it's a crisis, and we need to send in the army. When we get hurt, it's a tiny police report. When they get hurt, it's the whole army. And I don't like that concept. I like the idea of us taking bigger action because we saw the people generally are feeling the pain. And there has to be done something to help everybody, not because this one guy in a suit that you like, who happens to be well connected to the people of influence, to the elites of society, happened to get attacked.
I mean, do you think Trump knew this guy beforehand?
Nothing personal. I mean,
probably
maybe,
not, right?
But it's nothing personal. It's just that this is somebody within his admin, and so he honestly, it feels like he's kind of using it as the opportunity. Like, DC, honestly, I think he's using it as an excuse because DC is the easiest to do this. You can't do it in Baltimore that easily because Baltimore is in a state that has its own legislator, that has its own governor, that has its own separation of, the federal government and the state legislator and the separation of powers. DC doesn't have those protections. DC has a non-voting congressional representative, and that's the most it has. So they can go in there and they can take it over, even though this has never happened before. Despite the fact that the data does not really indicate an immediate crisis. And they can use this one instance as an excuse to do it. And whether or not this is a diversionary tactic to take away like attention from the Epstein stuff, whether or not this is just him trying to practice, him trying other things in other cities, because this is the one he could for sure get away with, because DC doesn't have the powers to protect itself, which it should have. I do believe in DC statehood. I don't know, but in either case, it's a waste of taxpayer dollars. I think, and I think it really should have been. They should have consulted the people who live in these communities that the soldiers are going to be patrolling.
I think that you're like, I don't know. Like I said, I don't really know the solution. Maybe let me build a bridge here. I think the problem is the partisanship here, and that's kind of why I brought up both of us would end up being a martyr depending on the situation. This is honestly part of the reason why I come on like any of these shows in the first place is like push policy one that benefits me, but two, like I fully believe in having conversations with like people of opposing opinions, right? Obviously you do too, and I think that like the partisanship.
Wait,
like
are you not a Democrat?
No, I'm not a Democrat.
Really? I thought so.
Oh no, I'm a Texan, bro. What do you think we vote?
Yeah, what was that woman governor you all had that everyone that was a King of the Hill? They were on it. That's the only Texan that matters. Ones that were on King of the Hill.
Peggy Hill, bro. Yeah.
No, there was the former governor of Texas, a woman, Diane Richards, or I forget her name.
Oh yeah. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, no, but I think that being able to like have convos, I think the partisanship really is the biggest problem here, really, like because I think it's going to lead to more of these situations, and and this is maybe something I think that your audience and I actually will agree with. One of the reasons I was afraid of Doge is because I don't like big government, and this is absolutely Trump testing the waters to see how much he can get away with. And I mean, I think these kind of opportunities where they do this is somewhat, terrifying for any president to do. I don't like when presidents are sitting in National Guard for many reasons. Like I think there are cases where it's necessary, right? At this, like if it's giant riots, but if it's like one guy got beat up and he didn't even die, or there's like one murder, I'm not sold that we need to send in.
It just seems like to me, man, like DC is the city of Democrats that Trump has the most power over. Every other state with full of Democrats has like its own legislature that can like stand up in some way. If Trump went in and said, "We're gonna come in and we're gonna tell you have to do it this way and that way," he can't do that entirely. Like he can try. Like we've been seeing these ice battles like across the country, but in DC, like there's really nothing stopping the government from just coming in and basically shutting everything down. Like there's like the city council, but that's really it. And so they took over the police force. And there's certain like tiny, like kind of disrespectful ways that kind of really thumb the nose and like the independence of this community. And they like the idea that these people are almost like seen as equal Americans. One example would be, the Washington Commanders, formerly known as Washington Redskins.
Yes.
Well, they want to move a stadium into DC. I don't know exactly when, but they want to move a stadium into DC out of Maryland. So maybe I'm not the biggest fan of it, but ultimately. That's up to DC. That's up to the football team. It's the Washington Redskins, Washington Commanders, right? Trump comes in and he says he will not approve it unless they change their name back to the Washington Redskins.
Yeah,
That's not his fucking business. That's not his business to go in there and start saying we're going to possibly shut down thousands upon thousands of jobs for this company who went through this long process of rebranding. These people, that's like life change. Working for the NFL can be like life changing money for people.
Listen, you're not gonna get me to defend him telling a private company what to do. Like I'm not gonna do that. Like that's not what I'm gonna defend.
I know. I guess I more want to appeal to the fact that it's not just about Trump in DC. It's the status quo in DC. It's unsustainable. The fact that they kind of live in this limbo where they don't have democratically elected representatives.
Yeah.
Like they pay taxes like the rest of us. They don't have a person that votes for them in Congress. They don't have a person that votes for them in the Senate. The president can just say, "Yeet, I have your police force now. We have soldiers on your street. We're now go saying, is that a marijuana cigarette in your mouth?" Like this is not a state of affairs that is, I think, sustainable.
Yeah, listen, I'm actually not inherently opposed to DC statehood, and I think that would solve some of the problems you're describing. I will say, like, one I'm more familiar with is like Puerto Rico. Like, I've been there many times. I like have friends there. I have cousins there now. Like, it's like that. This sounds very similar to the arguments that the Puerto Ricans for statehood make a lot, and it seems very complicated. And this is why when we talk about the National Guard being
But the
sent
big
in-
difference between Puerto Rico and DC is there's an independence movement in Puerto Rico. There can't be a DC independence movement. It's the
Well,
capital.
yeah, that's a big part of it.
which is why the government feels like it can treat it like this.
Well, there's also
which is why
it's also an
it's
island.
the United States.
That's a big
it's-
portion too. Yeah.
Yeah. But so it's like there is no to me. What other option is there? But if you are under taxation, you have representation. What is more American than that?
No, I agree with all that. I want to speak to the National Guard thing a little bit though. Like, I'm not gonna. I don't disagree with what you're saying right there, where they live in this limbo. I think that's a problem. There needs to be some kind of carve out for them or give them statehood. I agree. I don't like that at all. But when it comes to like sending National Guard in, I'm very like on the line. Right, as like a Texan, like I don't like big government. Like it's in my blood to just hate it, right? And I'll give you an example where I was okay with the National Guard, and it was coming in, and it was only because of local politics, right? So, do you remember doing? I think it was the most recent like Palestinian like kind of like at the campuses like riots, not riots or like protests. Yeah. So Texas sent the National Guard in to clear them out because the locals didn't want to do it because it was on UT's campus, right? And the only reason why I was in favor of that is because there's been a no camping law that was just passed 6 months before in Austin. And the reason for that no camping law is because there had been so many sexual assaults on women because of the homelessness problem. It was just a huge problem. And these people were like, we don't care about why this is here. We're going to do this anyway. And then the hobos were like, several hobos like came out like on TV. I know they don't represent all hobos, but they're like, oh, well, if the college kids can do it, why can't we? And so like, it was like already seeing like an influx of camping outside the campus. And so they sent the National Guard. And I was like, okay, this is maybe a heavy-handed, but I can see why they would do it, right? Because they're like cutting the butt off at the pass. This is not actually tied to the protest. This is tied to local issues. However, at the same time,
would you extend that to the people who critiqued Israel being thrown in jail
in Texas?
No, in America, like Khalil and the rest of them.
I don't like people being thrown in jail solely for free speech violations. Like, no, that would be bad, right? Like, I'm not a fan of that. No, but when it comes to like that specific section, whatever. However, I would not have been a fan if, say, like there wasn't that law before, and say like Dallas Fort Worth had people camping, and then like I think they also have a no camping, but for different reasons. But if they had been doing that, but they didn't send the National Guard to like Dallas to clear them out, like that would have been, I would be like, no, you don't have the same situation. We're not okay with this, right? And so like I think these need to be like looked at case by case. And with the DC one, it seems like it's premature, and I definitely agree with you that it seems like he's testing the waters. I'm not like, you're not gonna get me defending Trump for doing big government shit. Like that's just not.
Yeah, well, and what sucks is like the DC. I'm sure DC government would actually appreciate some more federal resources to deal with crime. I mean, I know like there are definitely wards in DC that would maybe appreciate some extra resources, but in the way that this is being announced, in the way that I'm seeing people on the street, like going around, like, do you guys hear about Trump? I don't know if you saw that one interaction of these these guys. It seems like they're just harassing guys on like different people's porch tops, like smoking cigarettes. Like this is part of Trump's new program as they're going around and talking to people.
Yeah, I mean, I also don't like
seems
stop and frisk.
They
I
didn't
don't like that
have.
either.
It doesn't seem like they have something for them to do, and that's the worst type of government work is busy work. Where I'm hearing that these soldiers cannot go around and they can't police. So what are they gonna do? Well, they're gonna be sitting in vans across the city, being ready to respond to stuff. Respond to what? Are they going to respond to a shooting? Is there going to be like somebody does like bop 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 tries to take a gang guy out like some sort of gang affiliate on a street corner, and then you've got fucking like 12 guys down with rifles and they're not trained for policing roles. So if they have any sense, they'll keep them in a logistical capacity. Which I
hope that's what they do. I agree with you. We don't need the Marines kicking down fucking doors because of someone shot. No, I mean, like, well, I'll grant you another one, just, for the sake of being good faith here. Like, Trump didn't put this policy in place, but, I'm sure we all remember stop and frisk in New York. Trump was in favor of that. He spoke about it many times, how he liked it. I also don't like that. Like, Trump definitely has views that I don't align with on many things, even despite me having his books behind him. But, like, it's kind of like, I'm just going to use this as an example because it comes to mind. Just today, I was posting about beef, right? And someone was like, "Oh, we need to do lab grown," and yada yada. And it's like the morally right thing to do because of vegan. And don't worry, I'm not pinning this on you. Yeah, you didn't do this for sure. But I said this, and I was like, well, I would obviously want legislation, wanting regulations on lab grown meat or like in support of ag here or whatever. And then they go, well, we don't need farmers and ranchers to vote. And I'm like, no, this is your problem. Who do you think grows soy? Who do you think grows these things? And it's the same thing with what you're talking about here. Like, this doesn't endear people to Trump, especially locally, if the goal of Trump and them is to, win voters in the long term.
The thing is, I know the problem is that they don't, honestly, I think Trump is a hyper partisan to the utmost extent. I think he views politics almost I want to say almost exclusively through a partisan lens, but when I hear reports about him looking at voting patterns to decide disaster relief, or the fact when we had the bad flooding here in Maryland, we didn't get any assistance. Other states have bad flooding, immediately they get calls, etc. I'm not gonna say that we'll have to wait to see how the federal government finishes with the response in Texas, but we didn't get any of that support. We didn't get any offers of help, and so now we're in a shit creek. And when we talk about DC, this is a city that voted over 90% for the Democrats in the presidential election. This is a blue urban city. So this is not somewhere where Trump has somewhere he can really I think he thinks he can go appeal to. So this is a group that I think he already discounts, and so using them as basically campaign material where he could put soldiers on the street and he can go tough and say, I took over, and then show already declining crime rates, go down another 10% next year and say, look, I did that. I solved the DC crime crisis. And will that piss off locals? Yeah, he's never going to win these guys' votes anyway. Will that win over somebody's vote in, I don't know, Ohio, who might be worried about crime but doesn't really know what's going on locally here in DC? Maybe.
Yeah, the Texas flooding thing is actually really interesting because it's actually it's kind of a small fight between Abbott and Trump. It's not one they're dying on, but it's interesting because do you remember we had the great freeze of Texas that the lefties always make fun of us for, right? And after that,
I by the way, no one should make fun of Texas for it. They should only make fun of exclusively Ted Cruz and nobody else.
That's fair. No, but we since then Texas has built a ton of batteries, more wind production. I think we're the leader in green energy production in the United States, right? We have our own grid that's independent and doesn't have to follow the federal rules. And so Texas is real good about when a natural disaster or something happens.
You have those horrible windmills?
Yeah,
those windmills which kill all the birds.
But Trump hates it, bro. It's the biggest fight between Texas from Trump and Texas is the green.
Why?
Energy.
Why does he hate the windmills so much, dude? What's wrong with windmills?
I don't know.
I think windmills look kind of cool.
I got them on my ranch. I won't lie. So hey, they're making me money. I'm not bitching about them. But yeah, I mean, I will say I'm not necessarily opposed to him getting rid of subsidies for it, but I I also don't want them to go away because I'm helping me out, and I'm very self-interested. I'll admit that, but like one of the things Texas has done is they're very big on building like their own infrastructure, and now like Abbott is forcing that county to like her county to build all sorts of shit that they didn't want to build. He's like, well, we're gonna do it for you because you fucked up, right? And I think this was a local disaster that Texas filled. Now I don't know if they'll take funding or not, but Abbott's already said he doesn't want funding with strings attached, and Trump likes to put strings. So I mean, I'm sure they'll come to some agreement, but. It's we'll see. I definitely think it's interesting because you brought up flooding in Maryland, and then he withheld stuff in, like California. I think there is something to be said. Do you agree? Maybe we can build a bridge. I'll get your opinion on this. Do you agree that like if a state seems to be inept with it in regards to how they handle a natural disaster, maybe you shouldn't give them the funding and you should like wait till like people are there that can do it properly or turn it over to you?
Well,
like, what do you think should be done in that situation?
Look, somebody has to take responsibility.
Yeah,
if
buck falls somewhere.
you have to prove ineptitude besides the usual, just like if you just got the Democrats are communist can't manage a crisis. This
I'm saying specifically Karen Bass probably deserves the head role in this one. Right?
Look, if there is a specific like instance that somebody can point to, but what I'm talking about is just no resources being deployed. What I'm talking that's what we're talking about in Maryland's case. That's what I'm hearing about in other cases.
They're different cases.
And so
sure.
What we need is a baseline of no matter where you are in the United States, somebody will take the responsibility for disaster and make sure that people are saved, and not only are saved, but they have some ability to rebuild and clean up. Right? That should be the basic responsibility of the government, and I don't think that the immediate partisan games where if you're a political ally, you get assistance, and you're not a political ally, then you don't. I think this is very dangerous. I think it's un-American, and I think it creates two Americas.
I think I can agree with you on the partisan. I mean, I tried building that bridge earlier, but I think partisanship is a issue. Like, I definitely wish we could return to more compromise. I don't think that's happening anytime soon, though. But when I look at these things, like I do see like some like merit to like the ineptitude thing, like specifically with LA. Like I don't know enough about the Maryland one, and the Texas one is still the jury's out. But when I look at like LA specifically, I just saw a reporter go to that reservoir that's supposed to be full. They said it's full now, and this was last week, and she was reporting live. She like snuck in, and there's no water, right? And if that's true or if that's not, whatever, right? That's a problem, right?
What reporter? Who was this?
It was. I don't know if I can find it before we're done, but I can look for it later. It was in that thing. Like, and I'm not even saying she's reputable, right? I'll find it. It looked like it was a local person doing like the crime stuff or whatever. But I like. I'll see if I can find it and send it to you. But the if that's true, and I'm not saying it is, like, wouldn't that's concerning to me, right? It seems like there's some level of an aptitude going. If it's not true, then it's bad.
I understand, but we need quickness of action. If it's gonna be you're not able to do it, then the immediate counter should not be. So we're just gonna exist in this limbo and allow these people to have to just like live in caddy shacks. Like they need an ability to restart. So if you say we can't trust you, then it should immediately follow with, well, here's my $2 billion fund that I'm going to administer federally, and we're going to establish an emergency. We're going to go in and we're going to help fix the situation. But that's not the type of action I see regularly taken. Or like if you're going to say the local government's competent, then you have to come in and do something. Then you have to do something to show up the local government and show how it's properly done.
Yeah.
Because if not, then you're just abandoning people in different states.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want people abandoned, in times of need, especially if my taxpayer dollars are going to FEMA. Like, let's use it at least what they're supposed to be used for, right? Like, I don't know. But, yeah, what else you got on the news?
Yeah, there's a few more things. Let's rip this Band-Aid off and get to, because there's some other things I wanted to get to, but this Alaska summit, man.
I was waiting for that one. That was the one I thought you were going to say. But go ahead. What you got for me here?
I was told that we had a 50-day deadline. Why we had a 50-day deadline, I can't fucking tell you. We could have just pulled the trigger on a tariff and let that speak for itself. But we put a 50-day deadline. Then Trump decided, I guess he was like kicking his feet on the bed or something and texting, and he saw, so I don't know. And then he decided 10 to 12 days within like 10 days. And so it was 10 to 12 day headline. Then the deadline comes up. And what happens at the end of the 10-day to 12-day deadline? We get a meeting with Vladimir Putin in the continental United States for the first time in a long time, and certainly the first time any meeting between an American head of state and a Russian head of state since the large-scale invasion of Ukraine. And we got that in the United States. How is this supposed to be read as a strong hand? How is this supposed to be read from the Russian perspective as anything other than Trump being so hopeful about this peace process that he's willing to continue to kick the can? I mean, it seems like the Russians have engaged in every delaying tactic in the world. And at every single step of the way, Trump has engaged in the waltz. And so I'm really hoping that this weekend, after 5 calls with Vladimir, all these sit-down meetings in Istanbul where the Russians say they can fight for 21 fucking years, like they're fighting the Swedes and it's 300 years ago or something. And at some point, Trump has to realize, look, sometimes you have to change the conditions on the ground in order to establish peace. And I remember critiquing Biden at different points and like saying, look, I can't defend this when it comes to actions he took during the war, which I thought were ill-advised. And I really just hope Republicans, after like telling people like, oh, just one more week, guys, one more week, and we're totally one more week. I've heard that so many times, like 5 or 6 times. So why even? And the worst part is, honestly, is that the reason this meeting's happening is because Steve Witkoff misinterpreted what the Russians said. He heard from them that they were willing to swap for something like Zaporizhia and Kherson in order for Donetsk and Luhansk. He told that to the Europeans. This conference started getting put together. And then 2 days later, he called them back and said, never mind. The Russians just want the Ukrainians to withdraw from Donetsk and Luhansk. And then they'll have a ceasefire. Not a peace, a ceasefire that should last for who knows how long. And these are tiny mistakes that they should have gotten out of their system in the first few days. Like not having the translator there, not having like Steve Witkoff knowing what the fuck he's even talking about. So I'm just sitting here. There's nobody there reeling Trump in besides Marco Rubio and Keith Kellogg. And I mean, they're not exactly the strongest personalities on the planet. So I'm very worried, Gibbs. Gibbs, how do you grade Trump? Be honest with me. How do you grade Trump on all this?
Well, I don't like that he picked Alaska. Like that, to me, the only place he could have done worse. Actually, I think this is worse. I think this is the worst place he could have picked. Really, if I'm grading it, okay, let me see how I would grade this. So this is a big negative. Like, if he's gonna get points off, it's gonna be 1 for Alaska when Russian nationalists come on Russian TV almost daily and fucking claim that they want to retake Alaska. Like, part of me wants to do the whole meme thing from Venture Bros, and we're like, come and take it. But no, and it's like Trump kind of like signaling to them. But like, let's be in a real world kind of scenario. Yeah, I don't like the move that it's in Alaska at all. I also don't like that he let it slip that it was in Alaska, as opposed when he was pretending it was going to be in Moscow or like wherever he was beforehand. I think they were like kind of hinting that it was Moscow before. I could be wrong on that, so don't crucify me. But yeah, and then I also didn't like the bait and switch where he just had 2 big peace deals. He had the Rwanda peace deal with Congo, and people were like, oh, big. Oh, I guess he's got 3. I guess there's Pakistan, India, whether or not you think it was a big one. And then he has the Armenian one, which they're all sitting here saying, yay, Trump. Now, once again, we can argue whether or not. So he's kind of established his idea that he's a peacemaker in the media, or at least for the right wing, right? And so the idea that Zelensky could go, that was maybe a saving grace. And then now today, they say Zelensky's not going to be involved, under any circumstance. And I'm like, well, how do you have a peace deal? And I was even willing to give him grace.
Did you hear what he said 30 minutes before we went live?
Was that
he said this is not a negotiation. This is, and I quote, a feeling out process. Like they're playing footsie under the table.
Yeah, and I didn't hear that, but that leads more into my second thing that I was about to say here is You just brought this up. Was it the day they announced it? Was it 3 days ago or whatever? The day they announced it was the day that we were supposed to slap them with the fucking tariff or whatever, right? And then he announced this, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, maybe that means Putin's coming to the table. And then today he says, basically we're giving each other handies under the table. We're not actually doing anything. And I'm like, well, then why aren't you slapping him with the tariff before we go to the meeting and like letting the big dick ride? Like I don't like that at all. Yeah, I mean, I obviously am pro Ukraine as a Republican. I know that's not the most popular stance, but I'm self-interested once again. I own military industrial complex. I also don't like Russia. So like why would Russia like I'm not like all sold on Russia's our friend. They can be our friend. No, they're a perennial empire that keeps coming back. They're like an axis of power. They're one of the main axis of powers if you go through multipolarity in history. And I foresee them always being an adversary unless we had like some kind of world government like was all US, and that's not going to happen in our lifetime. So yeah, I don't really like what's happening right now with the Trump Russia thing. I mean, I guess his one argument is I want it to end, but I feel like he's actually emboldening Putin right now. Like now, Russia's like making one of the biggest offensive pushes in recent memory, I believe. I mean, you know more than I do, like about that. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. Like I don't like the way it's being handled. If I'm being honest, I would like more, you know, a more of a firm stance. I like voted for Trump partially on foreign policy because I wanted him big swinging dick. I wanted him to come in and be like, listen, you can do what we want or we're gonna bomb the fuck out of you. I liked what he did with Iran. He came in and dropped the big bombs, and Iran immediately came to the table. I know people don't like that necessarily, but I think it's like you showed big force. Like I don't see why we can't handle Russia that way. We did it in this first term when they attacked in Syria, and they got an ass whooping. Right, the Wagner group got a beating, and then now we're gonna
Battle of Kasham.
yeah. Now we're playing. Now we're playing footsie. Like I don't know. Not a huge fan of that.
And like even within the last 12 hours, Trump was talking to the media, and just the way he talks about the Russians in comparison to the way he talks about the Ukrainians, you can just see it in the way he speaks about it. He talks about Putin. He's like, I think it's very respectful that he came to Alaska, that he came here, he came to us, we didn't go to him, he came to us. Very respectful of Mr. Putin. It goes over to Zelensky, and he's like, I like Zelensky. I disagree with him. I really disagree with him. He says that he needs a vote on a land swap from his people. He didn't need a vote to start the war. I was like, what the? Where is this? Like, this is you're
it's in
3
their
or 4
constitution
days
too. Like,
yeah, no, it's part of the Ukrainian constitution. And this is the problem is number one, not only is he uninformed, but number two, even if he was informed, I don't think he'd particularly care if it was part of the Ukrainian constitution. But this is supposed to be the Super Bowl, right? Well, now he's downplaying it. At first they had such high hopes for this, and then now that's downplayed to that we're just feeling each other out. Like we're just grabbing Putin's thighs under the table.
I almost am concerned because, like, I'm not in the camp on the right where they're like, yeah, the Russians, they're going to be our friends. Like, I'm not in that camp, like, at all, right? I'm almost concerned because I am, like, sympathetic to the view that, Europe needs to handle its shit. Right? However, I am concerned that he's like, okay, if we don't stop them in Ukraine, they're the last like non-NATO barrier, right? If we don't do something, he's like, we're gonna chalk it up as a loss. Like, I almost feel like he's just like wanting to give it a wash, and then he thinks that'll like appease Putin somehow. And I don't foresee that appeasing Putin. I see him going after the Baltic states next, right? Or maybe finalizing the annexation of Belarus and then using that to go on for somewhere else, right? Like, or moving into Georgia, like which he's already kind of done before. I just don't see the long-term strategic benefit of not supporting Ukraine, or at least like getting some kind of agreement where it's like stuff. Now, on the flip side, I don't know how realistic it is to expect like him to give all of Ukraine back to Russia. Like, if they control it, what's the like? How is the U.S. going to negotiate that? Are we going to be like, you have to give it back, or we're going to come in? I mean, I don't think anybody believes we're going to send U.S. troops in. So, like, what is the negotiating tool here to get them to give something back to Ukraine? Which it seems like Ukraine won't.
I mean,
there
like the strategy should be, if we're really doing this meeting in Alaska, it should be sitting down and saying, look, we've played this game for half a year. We want to get serious about this. We now view this as a way of either we settle this now or we work towards making it so you'll want to settle it later.
And that means that we have $3.8 billion just sitting there from Biden era approved PDA. That could be sent to Ukraine tomorrow. He'd be sent to Ukraine tomorrow. Trump has that completely in his executive authority. He could do that immediately. He could say, within the next 24 hours, we'll send in another 3.8 billion. Within 24 hours after that, we're going to institute the big sanctions on energy exports from Russia onto other foreign powers like China, India. Now, this will be inflationary. This will have economic consequences. But if you're going to do it now. If I'm a Republican, you would want to do it now before the midterms come around. You'd want to do it now, well in a year and a half out from the midterms, before you wait and you continue to play footsie with the Russians, and then it's March or it's April, and then you're finally going to pull the trigger. And hey, well, do we want to pull the trigger? We have political reasons not to, self-interested reasons not to. I don't know. And so now would be the time. It's either for me, for the real economic consequences, it's now or never. They got to turn off this like slow boil of the frog deal.
Well, the other thing is like I don't understand his negotiating tactics a little bit. He's like said several times he's been slapped in the face by like what Putin's done, or he's been like, not, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but that he's been displeased. Like there are other things that he could have done. Like, for example, I think we can both agree that Ukraine needs tanks, even if they're not top tier tanks, right? Just having tanks will be helpful, right? We have hundreds of M60s in cold storage, and we actually have, they're still regularly produced by the producers of the M60, right? They have conversion kits that they sell. We sell these to African countries all the time. Why wouldn't we just sell these tanks that are cold storage to them at bargain prices and get something?
The Bradleys, the Ukrainians.
The Bradleys.
We're phasing out the Bradley, and we have thousands of them. The Ukrainians will eat them up. There's footage of Bradleys like screwing up Russian T-80s and T-90s.
The Bradley's great. Yeah,
it's like the Bradley were performed very well in Ukraine. But I mean, there were instances earlier on where Trump was blocking the export of tanks from other countries, like the Australian Abrams that were going out of service. They were literally going to destroy them. Ukrainians like, we could use the parts, and Trump blocks it as part of his pressure campaign on the Ukrainians. If he showed half of the rage he showed towards the Ukrainians, towards the Russians, maybe we'd get a different outcome.
Well, my thing is, like, the reason I brought the M60s up specifically is because we have a company here that does the conversion kits, right? That would create more American jobs, right? It would, like, which is something he apparently wants, right? And then, okay, that's going to raise my stock prices. You know, it's going to turn right around. You know, we're going to give the Ukrainians another tank. Now, it's not the top of the line tank, but it's comparable to like the gen before, which the Russians are using older tanks too. Just having another mobile artillery platform of that variety would be just helpful, right? Just to give them like as a thing, even if it's not the best. And we would make money off it. It would help them, and it would slow Russia, which I don't even think Trump thinks Russia's our friend, you know, even if he is over here, whatever. But it's like he could have done this. It maybe wouldn't have had a huge impact, but it's the signal he would have sent to him after one of these other times when he goes, oh, Russia's agreed to a ceasefire, and then send drones in like 12 hours later. Like, oh, okay, if you're going to do that, I'm going to authorize us to give them all their M60s. I'm going to authorize, you know, something like one of our older pieces and give it to them. Like, I don't understand the carrot and the stick. He's willing to do the stick. He clearly likes the stick, you know, the way he's giving out tariffs. Why is he not doing this with like Russia specifically? I'm concerned he thinks he's got a relationship with Putin.
He even specifically avoided tariffs on Russia.
Yeah, I think that he thinks he can beat Putin at his own game. And I'm like, Putin's a former KGB guy. You're not gonna fucking play like mind games with Putin. Like, you know, there's a reason why he's been in power so long, right? Like, I don't know. I'm not real satisfied with how he's handled Russia. I won't lie, and I don't like that he's given Russian nationalists another reason to claim Alaska.
Because I would say it's been a failure, and I would say until he changes and starts pulling the trigger on some major consequences, this is at best a weaker version of the Biden Ukraine policy, i.e., you give them a little bit of drip. The situation continues, because it's not even like Biden was doing $24 billion PDAs last year. Now Trump is selling $10 billion to the Europeans that will hopefully end up in the hands of the Ukrainians, right? And we're talking about like $100 million here, $100 million there, and repair kits for equipment that they already have, right? So This is a situation where the drip is continuing at a lesser state. To me, that's a failure. That doesn't mean that Ukraine will collapse, but that means that we had an opportunity for change to increase the pressure and derail this war, make the Russians say, okay, this is a fool's errand. We'll take whatever we can get and we'll cut our losses. And instead, we have decided that we're going to drag this out into 2026.
Yeah, I actually I do think this is basically a weaker strategy of the Biden strategy. I wish he had more hard because even like on a bigger scale, he's done some things that are really injured. Oh, we'll call them bricks. I guess is the easiest way. But I mean, it's not really all of bricks, but like it's really hurting. We'll go use a Bush term, the axis of evil, which I've argued is Russia, Iran, now North Korea, China. Well, Iran's hurting. Right, they basically fallen apart. We could argue Bush saw this coming, but like long term, it looks like invading Iraq has led to the fall of all these other countries, right? And whether you think destabilization is good or bad, it definitely has hurt our enemies. Iran being chief among them, especially with Israel doing shit. And I know that's controversial, but when we look at these main countries, the main four, one country is benefiting a lot from this, and it's North Korea. They're now getting like real world experience fighting a modern military. They're getting to test out their stuff. They're now out of the famine. They've sold all
technology transfers. Technology transfers. Tons of technology transfers.
Yeah, and so originally I was reading reports saying that the artillery stuff they were getting from the Ukrainian North Koreans was like 1 out of every 6.
It's the first time anybody's ever wanted to buy something from North Korea in the last 50 years.
Well, they've sold their surplus. Yeah, they sold their surplus, and their surplus that was old didn't work all of it, right? But now they're making the new shit, and all their new shit's working. And I'm like,
and they're in North Korea. They run those factories 7 days a week, 24-hour days. Like they're running it as if the Ukrainians were at Pyongyang.
Yeah, and the other thing is like they were at like let's just say they're at 1% of like whatever their like total potential was, and now they're up to like 6%. Well, I mean, I'm just making up numbers, but like that's a massive gain for North Korea, right? Like now they have new income, they're out of a famine, and like these are real problems. We're like enabling maybe the most potentially like volatile regime in the world to like gain power at an exponential rate because we're not doing enough in Ukraine. Like that should be very concerning to people. Like China might do something, but they're much more likely, I think, to have North Korea do something first, and then us get bogged down there before China tries to go into like Taiwan or something. I don't know. I feel like we're not doing enough about this partnership with Russia and North Korea, and that's a big problem as well. I don't like.
Yeah, because people talk about an Asia pivot, but Asia's pivoting to Ukraine right now.
Yeah, I mean, and India is moving away from China and them because of what they did with Pakistan. Like, I don't know why. Like,
well, India and China have always had a conflict.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's a big factor too. But like, Russia also supported Pakistan. I guess is something I was reading the other day. I don't know how, but not much. But I read they were pretty mad.
Would you agree that Trump's policy has been a failure so far?
With Ukraine, I would say that I'm not pleased. I rate it like a D- or like an F. Yeah, it's pretty low. With Ukraine specifically.
I wish I could do a D-, but I can't even find anything to like particularly compliment from like Steve Witkoff being in the room still, even though he's clearly completely out of his depth. I hope you agree with that. When like he can't name the regions that he's trying to negotiate over. He's on a podcast and he can't name Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhzhia, Kherson, and he's like saying we need to give it up, and he's like, which regions? And he can't remember fucking names. Like this is embarrassing. And he's like, these should not be the people who are leading the way. I understand that he's a friend of Trump, but like, if I was president, can I just get I'm friends with the mailman? Can I make him ambassador to China?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's twofold. One's like kind of a negative reason that I'm like think that it's not a total F or it's a D- for me, right? And then one's a decent reason, right? Like, what is one thing the U.S. does, like more than anything, when it comes to, like when it's sending the military, is we protect our foreign economic interests, right? Like oil interests, we're going in somewhere, right? And we did sign this mineral deal, which makes me hope that Trump is going to be like, all right, we got to protect our interests, right? Like that kind of gives me hope. And then the other one is, and this is, I know you're not going to like this, but I think Trump is like a businessman, and I think that Zelensky, he is tied by the Constitution. I don't know how likely it is he can get it changed. I just don't know that it's realistic at this point to expect Russia not to like expect to take portions of the land permanently from them. Like, I don't know if we could convince that to stop, like, with the idea that they're not going to gain some of this land to some degree. Now, I'm not saying I like that. I'm just like,
Well, wait, like to be clear, the Ukrainians aren't asking right now to like give us back Crimea and then we can talk. What they're saying is
Sure.
just like freeze it where it is. We don't agree, obviously, to what the Russians have done. The Russians obviously disagree. We'll leave it as is and try to pursue it
what about like the
you know,
Donbass?
come another day, right? So that that's a very different question, or that's a very different perspective than the Russian one, which is we just need to keep pushing until we get to the end of our objectives here. The Ukrainians like want obviously their land back, but they're of the position that they have to get it back diplomatically. That they have to pressure the Russians, they have to make the Russians feel pain, and then they're to the point where the Russians are going to have to give up at least a substantial portion of the land that they occupy. Where the Russians are at the perspective that they're not even close to done. That they're going to take Donetsk and Luhansk, and then after taking Donetsk and Luhansk, they're going to take Zaporizhia and Kherson, and you know who knows what's next. Honestly, I would be surprised if Putin, if he saw an opportunity, wouldn't immediately go for Odessa. I think he wants the coastline.
Yeah, I don't know. I do you think, I mean, you obviously are closer to the people than I am. Like, what regions would they be willing to give up? You said Crimea. Like, is there, like, would they be
Well,
willing
I
to give up
mean,
most
like
of
the
Donbass?
Ukraine. You mean like officially give up the Donbass? No, because they still control parts of the Donetsk region.
Right.
And I know people from the Donetsk region, and they're fighting very hard for every little piece of it. I mean, it's kind of
Sure,
crazy
yeah.
to think that most of the last 3 years of fighting, the most brutal fighting, has usually been concentrated within the Donetsk region. So this is expecting them to.
But they don't control the majority of that, right?
No, they don't control the majority of it. Not to mention, also, they have all their defenses in this region. So you'd be asking them to give up their elevated positions
Who, the
where they built
Russians?
defenses, the Ukrainians, give it up to the Russians, and then they've exposed their flank, which is they don't have defenses constructed in, and then you just kind of hope that the Russians don't invade again.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
that's
to be
part
clear,
of the
I'm
reason
not
why
asking.
I think what do you think about the swap deal that Trump's talking about? Because the way that it's been posed is and what I think's happening from what I'm hearing is that the Russians are going to want to offer a few villages in the Sumy region and what they've been able to take in the Kharkiv region for Ukraine to completely withdraw from the Donbass. But the Donbass is where they have their best defensive positions, and the territory they want to exchange it for is basically completely burnt down villages where like very few to nobody lives in anymore.
And
So
the
it's not like
Donbass is mostly
some
cities, right? Like industrial cities.
well, what's left is like Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. Those are like the capitals, basically the capital of Free Donbass. Then you've got Konstantinivka. I was there a few weeks ago, filming to the south of it. The fighting down there is pretty intense right now. You know, and there's still like a third of the Donetsk region that's unoccupied.
Yeah, this comes back to my I guess the point I'm making. Like, Trump is kind of like, he's not Ukrainian, right? Like, I could see him being like, okay, listen, you have to give up the area they control or something, and then Ukraine balking, right? I don't know, and Zelensky be like, no, I don't, and then like you said, I think most Ukrainians think they'll have to get it back diplomatically. I just don't know that Putin.
Well, that's the position of the government. That's the position of the government.
Okay.
Ukrainians are Ukraine was told accept an unconditional ceasefire. Then Trump cut off aid. That's happened earlier during the presidency, and then Ukraine said, "Okay, fine, we'll do an unconditional ceasefire." Then they went to the Russians, and the Russians said, "No," and that's where we've been ever since. It's the Russians who have specifically said, "We'll only do it once Ukraine withdraws from not only Donetsk and Luhansk."
Yeah, I mean,
But
Russia's definitely the
also
aggressor.
Zaporizhia and Kherson. They want to cross over the Dnieper River. They want to get a city of Zaporizhia of like 500 to 700,000 people. I mean, these are ridiculous demands, but these are the demands that have not changed for the last 3 years.
Well, I mean, and then you bring up the ceasefire. I mean, if I recall correctly, literally like 12 hours after Trump was like, "Yeah, we're gonna do this," they fucking sent one of the biggest attacks into Ukraine. In like at the time, I guess it was like in history. I was like,
yeah, no,
I'm just like, that's a slap in the face, Trump. Like,
yeah, I mean, they've slapped him quite a few times across the face.
I don't know
I
why.
can't give him anything outside of a complete failure, outside of a complete F, because I can't find everything that I could find that could be possibly positive are things that aren't even like Ukraine directly. There are other things that just have like a downstream
Yeah, like Iran.
positive effect for Ukraine. Like, well, not even like in Iran's a tough one because you'd think Iran with the drone production, but all that's been moved
But
to
it's already
Russia.
been moved to Russia. Yeah, like
Yeah. So it's like it's stuff that's like helpful.
yeah.
Like I think Azerbaijan and Armenia, that's something that could be helpful and annoying for the Russians. That's probably the closest I could think of. But that's not a Ukraine. I would grade that separately. That's that's a different conflict.
I wonder, and I can't prove this. I wonder if it's because the places he's dealt with him like harshly, like Iran, or he's been able to like deal with Azerbaijan and the Armenians, right? I wonder if it's because he's been able to do this from like a position of power, right? Versus when it comes to Russia, even though we are arguably more powerful.
I can tell you,
that
it's not all in some. I can tell you right away. It's not just like a position of power. It's the pieces have been lined up. In Azerbaijan and Armenia's
Sure.
case, Nagorno-Karabakh was taken over. 100,000 Armenians fled, and they both have interests that are contrary to the Russians. The Armenians felt betrayed. The Azerbaijanis had their civilian airliner shot down by the Russians like a year ago. They killed a bunch of people. They both have conflicts with the Russians, and the tensions between Azerbaijan and the Russia continued to increase. And so the pieces were in place for the Congo, and there was something similar there. I think that the biggest crises that he has dealt with really was that escalation of tensions, that 12-day air war between Iran and Israel. That's the one where he took the most initiative. But the rest of these, like peace initiatives and such, most of these are conflicts that have kind of gone through their motions, but they needed a mediator and a carrot. And he came in and he offered a mediator and a carrot.
Well,
whereas in Ukraine's instance, this isn't something where somebody just comes in and talks a bunch, right? Even though Trump not necessarily even have all the best words at times. This is a situation where you have to come up and change shit. You have to come in and move the gears around. You got to change the conditions on the ground until the Russians will see reason. And Trump simply is not interested in wanting to change the conditions on the ground. And he would much rather have bailed out on the idea, push the blame on the Ukrainians, because it's much easier to cut off aid than to work with allies to improve the situation on the floor.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on a lot of that, especially in regards to like the Rwanda situation. Rwanda is now the biggest supplier to the UN for troops for of any African nation. I think they might even be number one overall, right? And they're also the biggest. They've took over almost all of France's contracts with private security or outside security in a lot of places that France was doing in Africa. And they just have a way more powerful military than the Congo. And the Congo was Russian backed. And then when Syria fell apart and they lost their port, there goes all their support. And and the Congo was ready to settle, right? Like and now that now they're willing to team up with us, at a worse rate than say what Rwanda's getting. And I definitely think, I see the trickle down, and I'm wondering if it's just because he sees Putin as an equal, or Putin's playing ball like he's an equal and he's not giving in, and it's benefiting. But I definitely agree with you. I don't like how he's handled the Ukrainian situation at all. I wish we would just fund him to the teeth. I'm wondering if it's that, or if he thinks this is going to keep happening, if he can keep playing Putin long enough that he can keep ticking off little pieces around him.
It's
I don't know what his plan is. I can't figure it out. And I feel like I'm usually pretty good at predicting it.
It's been over 6 months. I mean, like he'll say for a moment like I'm being disrespected, and then go around and say like, oh, I'm being dragged along, and then he'll say, oh, I think he wants peace, like a few weeks later. And it's this just continuing to be dragged along that is quite aggravating. It'd be one thing if Trump just said like I don't care, but Trump speaks a big game, and so I would appreciate if it at least followed like a certain path. But this is my warning on election night. You were there. I said it's going to be a back and forth. It's going to be a flip-flopping on this. If we get anything, it's going to be inconsistent. It's going to be a pitter-patter of touch and go. And that seems to be what we're getting. And my biggest complaint of what Ukraine needed was stability. They needed stability and support. So Trump really is kind of a disaster when it comes to that. That doesn't mean that there's no chances or abilities to still try to engage to get what you can. Ukraine doesn't really have much of a choice. But I mean,
No, I
in
will.
gaining peace and helping Ukraine and all of these goals, Trump's presidency has been a utter failure. And I hope more people within the Republican Party start saying this out loud, because I don't think until the safe space bubble gets popped, Trump's really going to feel the consistent pressure to move.
Well, there is a pretty. I mean, I don't know. Like, if I had to assign a percentage, I would say it's probably like 1/6. The Republican Party is pretty pro-Ukraine, right? Like, if I'm just like guessing, like faction-wise, right? And then there's people that are sympathetic, and that could be whatever. And then there's obviously isolationists, all these different. But I mean, you and I've always been pretty pro-Ukraine. We've always agreed on that. Like, I am kind of in your camp here. I don't like how he's handled it at all, and I just for the life of me, like I've made like I don't know about a career, but so far since I've joined the debate space, I have been damn good at predicting what Trump's going to do. Even when I'm like I don't like if this is going to happen, but he's going to do this, and then I'll end up being right. Like if I do my Trump soothsaying, I cannot for the life of me figure out what the fuck the plan is with Ukraine.
Wait, give me a moment.
Go ahead. No.
Somebody just said that Trump's desperate to get a peace deal done despite the ramifications. He wants that Nobel Prize. He's aiming for the Norwegian honor. What do you think of that?
I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, I think he's definitely aiming for a peace prize. I mean, he's got 3 groups that are crediting him with a peace prize, like causing peace. Like already, what is it? Rwanda, the Armenian one, and then India, right? Is there one more? Am I missing something?
Can he not just make his own peace prize and just be fucking done with it instead of continuing to bother the Norwegians?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he could go the Nobel route. Yeah, I made dynamite. Now I want to be known for peace prize. Yeah, no, I mean maybe the Trump peace. Everybody would make fun of him for that. I mean, then again, he's got a big enough ego. He might be able to get.
What do you mean? Oh, people will make fun of him. Well, that would be
that stopped him before, right? No, I think he wants the peace prize from Nobel. I also think he might. See
I mean that he was really trying to make sure nobody made fun of him when he made Trump shoes and Trump crypto. And
you know what I just thought
trading
of?
card NFTs and
this is not a fleshed out thought. And guys, don't quote me. I'm not Trump whispering right now. What if he sees himself in Nobel? Right? Like Nobel did this whole life one way, and then he wanted to give back at the end if he remembered something good. And so he made the Nobel Peace Prize. What if Trump's like, oh, I want my legacy, and so I want the Nobel one because of the significance of him doing that.
I'm sure he's cares about his record or or how he's remembered maybe to some degree, but I don't know if it's really translating to the giving back philosophy.
Oh, Cambodia. What's up?
Cambodia
nominated him for the Peace Prize. That's what your Ahmad said.
Did Trump settled Cambodia, Thailand?
I don't think so. They're still. They just had a ceasefire. They're still at war, I believe.
No, they're still going at it. I was talking to a guy in the Thai government yesterday about it. So we both agree that it's been a failure then, generally. Yes, we can
I think we can move on. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Oh boy, I do need to ask you 2 last things. Okay, the first thing is Trump needs to purge some people.
Mm-hmm.
Trump needs to purge. Okay, I don't know if you agree with me on this, but there are some people around him that are doing him nothing but trouble and don't have the experience or knowledge to justify the position. And there are plenty of people who like Trump enough or are willing to tolerate Trump enough who could do the job better than he could replace him with. That would mean less trouble, right? Now, just a quick honorary mention, Laura Loomer. Block him. Somebody needs to steal Trump's phone and block her. Somebody needs to steal Trump's phone. If it's his son, if it's somebody, I don't care. Somebody needs to. I don't care. Okay. But besides that, Pete Hegseth. He has been a mess. Not only when it comes to security leaks, not only when it comes to giving his wife classified information she doesn't need, which, by the way, while they said at the time wasn't classified, even though everyone who listened to the time of a bombing, the location of a bombing, the munitions used, the aircraft used, this is all classified information. We now know due to recent reports that it literally had on the document classified, top secret. No, not classified. It was secret. So secret, classified. I mean, you can use your distinction, but that information was getting out there. That's a scandal Trump didn't need. He also is somebody who not only is not able to like stop these leaks from getting out there, but he's also somebody who hasn't, from what I've read, hasn't really done much to restructure or reprogram the Department of Defense, and has spent quite a lot of time looking for leaks, looking for people who are, trying to get stuff out to the press. And he doesn't have any experience leading large organizations. He has a sole experience as a grunt and a guy on Fox News, which I'm not saying a grunt's experience isn't important, but when you're managing the most lethal war machine, the most destructive war machine in the history of man, I want some management skills. I want some experience. I want a fucking general with some colorful buttons on his chest, right? I don't want somebody who could shoot good and then do a keg stand. That's something I want in a Marine. That's what I want out of my 6'6", a corn-fed Iowa boy that can tear a man from Beijing in half. That's not what I need for the head of the Department of Defense. And lastly, he's undermining Trump. He's directly contradicting Trump. He's undermining him in a way that Trump critiqued from the first term. The most clear indication I could point to of this is that as Trump's trying to negotiate with the Russians, as Trump is making a deal to get weapons over to Ukraine, as he's trying to balance all of this, Pete Hegseth makes a decision with Elbridge Colby under the nose of Trump to freeze support to Ukraine, even though it had been blocked 3 times previously. Due to what he said was shortages that had to be addressed, even though a lot of these things, like MLRS rockets, we don't have shortages of. Trump, when he was asked about it, he said he didn't know anything about it. And then afterwards, he's like, oh, we are going to give weapons to Ukraine. We are going to send these to Ukraine. So it is Pete Hegseth working outside of the bounds of what Trump wants when he's trying to do these high-stakes diplomacy. Trump trying to get this right is already a problem enough. Pete Hegseth now working under him, it's just undermining him. It just makes it too complicated. This guy doesn't have any advanced skills. Replace him with some general. It can be a person nobody knows.
Yeah, I mean, so all right, just real quick. Was Pete Hegseth? Did you say Pam Bondi was one?
No, I just stayed stuck with Pete Hegseth.
Oh, Pete Hegseth.
I could each one an hour, man.
Oh,
They've all
sure.
had their own beautiful. If we want to get in the Epstein with Pam Bondi, we can get in the Epstein. But let's stick with Pete Hegseth.
Yeah, we'll do Pete Hegseth. We can move on to that if you want to. I don't. You're probably not gonna like my Epstein take, but the Hegseth. Yeah, I don't know. I could be sold on getting rid of him. He's had several pretty high profile flubs. I like when he hasn't flubbed, I've liked some of the stuff he's done with the military. I like some of the testing requirements they've gone back to. I like a few of the things, but yeah, I think that anybody could do these changes.
Wait, well, yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. When you talk about those changes, are these changes that good management skills or good leadership, or there's something particular skill-based attribute that he's pulling from to do it, or is this something that any pencil pusher could have flipped the switch on? And when we talk about like going back to an old requirement, that's something anyone could have flipped the switch on.
Well, yeah, I agree with you on that.
People who passed all the tests
I don't
and
know
got
about
into the
that.
Army, anybody could have flipped the switch on that. That's not something that only Pete Hegseth could have done, or Pete Hegseth had special skills that helped him there. And so when we talk about organizing for this new age of warfare when drones are taking over the battlefield, like I want the people up there who are the best. I don't want the people up there who can talk the best.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll speak to the trans one specifically. I don't know about y'all, but there's pretty much nothing more. Have you seen? I don't know. This isn't translated, but what was that guy, the sergeant that got fired, and they called him like General Puppy or something, and he had the fucking dog mask. Like I know Shane Gillis was.
No, that's it's the story's misinterpreted. The dude retired.
Yeah,
and he was retiring, and he was like, "Fuck it, if I'm gonna retire and I'm leaving," and he put on the dog mask and took a picture and then retired.
Yeah, I mean that is terrifying. We need to unleash 500 of those guys out on our next enemy. Like, bro,
I was saying that dude is built. He's like huge, man.
Bro, can you imagine?
That dude could tear in half.
Bro, can you imagine if like that guy is grabbing you and you hear him like spread his cheeks? Like, no, I don't want none of that. Like that, like fuck that shit, bro. I'm out. Like I surrender.
I'm out.
No, I'm more of a fan of like some of the standard testing, going back to the harsher drill sergeant thing where they're like doing the in your face kind of like I think so they lightened up on some of the physical stuff that they can now like touch them again or like punch them and like also I think that's good for like a military. I don't know if that's good for people's mental health, but I mean I don't know that, and I know mental health is a big issue in the military. However, I think that there's a reason why we've been number one, and it's because we take the time to invest in our soldiers and we keep them alive and we make them tougher, right? I think that's a part of it. But like I don't. But back to your point. But back to your point, I don't think it's innately Pete Hegseth doing this, right? Like I think that another person with the same agenda could do it without the leaks. Like I could be sold on Pete Hegseth, right? Like getting fired, right? Like because of that. Like
a bunch of people can drive you to the grocery store. A bunch of different cars can drive you to the grocery store. But that doesn't mean you take the junker that's leaking all over the roadway. It has a flat tire.
I agree with that. He's getting harder and harder to defend. Vehicle. He's definitely getting harder and harder to defend because it's like the scandals keep popping up. Like the leak, what is the third leak we've had from him?
Because the argument. So he didn't come from a position of experience, so you can't argue that we know he's the right person for the job from the get-go because of some experience you could pull from. So instead, the argument for Pete Hegseth was warrior culture. He's a real grunt. He's got that lived experience, and he's not controlled, right? So he's not controlled by like the deep state and stuff like that, and so he'll be loyal to Trump. And then the warrior culture stuff is all stuff that probably could have been done by other people, or it's just like seems to be just snappy kind of pop culture, like Fox News, like these Twitter videos we're seeing of him with the drone giving him the piece of paper and all that type of stuff. And when it comes to the idea of like a loyalty to Trump, he's undermining Trump. He's undermining him. He's doing the exact thing that Trump says is a type of treason or betrayal from the first term from the people under him. And this was the exact argument for this type of guy. No, I know the experience will be lacking, but at least he'll be loyal. Well, now he doesn't have experience. He's leaking stuff. He's kind of a clown show, and he isn't loyal.
Well, I agree actually with some of what you said, and I think that maybe part of the problem has been we've had generals in the role like for like a substantive like period of time, and we're losing some of the on the ground. And I think you kind of pushed this. Like I don't know why we couldn't have promoted. I'm knowing about the butcher's last name, but James Hanea, the current Master Chief of the Navy, right? Like that would be somebody who would be an excellent promotion. He's the highest non-commissioned officer.
Well, right? What about the Master Chief?
Hey, right? That'd be great. Little John 117 action. But like, I'm saying if we, that's what I'm saying. The current Master Chief of the Navy, he'd be a fantastic person, right, to promote, right? Like, I think he's gonna have the on the ground, the culture change. He's been the Master Chief since like 1987. Like, he's gone through these changes. I think like if we want the on the ground culture change, like I could be sold a Hegseth. Let me give you two more. I could be sold on potentially, and I almost think putting Shapiro in his DC.
So you're already bought on to my purge. We're just talking about who should be on the list, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with purging people that are ineffective.
Okay. So we've
people that are
Pete
Hegseth. My job. Yeah,
we purged Pete Hegseth. Okay, Pete Hegseth's gone.
Yeah, I could be sold on that.
Who's next?
I don't. Pam Bondi probably needs to go next.
Okay, I agree. Pam Bondi, and honestly, I would go further, and I would include Kash Patel as well.
I would be willing to.
And I would also take out Dan Bonagino, and all for different reasons. But I think
so. Yeah, actually, that's interesting. I'll just go through my list right there because I knew those were the next three when I said Pam Bondi. All right. So just for funsies here, I definitely think Pam Bondi probably should go at this point. Like I'm not thinking she's not doing a good enough job at her thing, and she's made too many contradictory statements. It's made the whole thing work. Kash Patel, his whole spiel was the Epstein thing. And fail. Like I like Kash Patel for a lot of stuff, but he's too tainted now. On Dan Bongino, I keep seeing his name brought up, and I know that he was real big on the anti-Epstein shit. But like when you bring him up, like he's the deputy guy, right? How much? I know that they've claimed he's been involved. I just don't know how much say he has on this specific issue. Whenever we're talking about like the head,
I mean, he did leave in protest reportedly for a few days.
right.
Over
So
what was going on.
right. So that leads me to think that he's not totally on board, right? And he's trying to be good soldier, follow orders, and which is in and of itself is a problem. But
It is. I mean, if he's a good soldier following orders, and we're talking about an international sex criminal of the type of elite swamp that Trump said he was coming into D.C. to flush out, it's a problem.
right, yeah, and I'll grant that. But then if he like left in protest, then maybe he's kind of like in this situation where he thinks he can do more good if he plays ball. It's like I don't know how bad the FBI is. I am of the opinion the FBI is corrupt, right? Like personally, I also think most three-letter agencies are corrupt. So that's just bias. But when I'm willing to give like Pan Bondi and Cash Patel, this is the leader and this is the person that's supposed to be the top attorney, right? And she doesn't seem like she knows what's going on. Cash Patel seems like he's thrown everything he believed in under the table. And I maybe Dan Bongino. I've seen enough to suggest to me that maybe he's at least an honest guy trying.
Well, but I mean, he might.
Why do you want Dan Bongino gone? Why do you?
Okay, there's a few reasons. Number one, the same Jeffrey Epstein stuff. He made it a big part of his profile too.
Yes.
And to just like completely flip overnight and accept this lack of transparency. Cash Patel said on Joe Rogan that not only would they release the information, they would release the unfiltered, unedited, undoctored raw footage from the cell. And then they released the footage. Not only is footage edited out, but I mean, that means it's not the raw footage. So it's raw and they edited out footage. He lied. Right, so there's certain like things that are such credibility breaking that I would remove them, and I also don't think that they're competent. So if you're not competent and uncredible, and you're not particularly like you're not bringing a wealth of experience to this job, so you can do it in a way that helps the administration, I don't know why you're there. Get rid of Cash Patel, get Pam Bondi, get rid of Pam Bondi, and Dan Bongino. He's also very whiny. I see him on Fox News whining about how hard this job is for him. Then let's find somebody who it's not as hard for.
I feel like I just want let me hear me out. I would like this is what I would like if my optimum decision. I wish Dan Bongino would be promoted, right? And Bondi and
that's the opposite direction I was advocating for.
Hold on, I get that. If they cut, let's just say in a perfect world, little thought exercise here. If I were to be willing to cut Bondi and Patel, which I think I would be okay with, or we consider strongly, and I wanted Bongino put in charge on a temp basis and some change with like the Epstein thing, where we got a different direction with how that's going. Even if it's like not convictions, if it's just like release of the stuff that proves why they're not convicting or something, would that assuage some of your problems with Bongino?
Sorry, repeat exactly. Could you simplify
that
again?
We cut Bondi, Patel, gone. All right. Bongino goes in charge, and we give him, I don't know, 6 months to, I guess, 6 months. Let's give him 6 months. And if the direction doesn't change with the Epstein thing and a few other things, well, let's just go with the Epstein thing because that seems to be the big one. If the Epstein thing doesn't change in 6 months, then under Bongino, I would be willing to fire him then. Like, I think that he wants to push this shit out.
I mean, I would probably shorten the timeline from 6 months
to like 3.
Maybe 2 to 3, something like that. But I would already say that he's already smashed his credibility. But I mean, he's deputy director. I guess you could pump him up there and like knock him down.
Yeah, because if he gets promoted, it doesn't do anything. But here's the problem. He's still the problem.
Here's the problem, though. This is also why I wouldn't make it 6 months. The longer you drag out the Jeffrey Epstein mess, and definitely the closer you drag it out to the midterms, the worse of a problem it's going to be. There might be an argument for a complete clean sweep, so you can broadcast the image of kind of like a new face of somebody who's fresh who could take it on. But also, it's hard for me to trust the credibility of these people after they've already kind of bungled it up so severely. But if you want to give them like a month or 2 months, like Dan Bongino isn't like particularly the most offensive in the administration to me. Get rid of Linda McMahon. I don't know.
Oh, you don't like the McMahons?
I'm just not. I just don't know if she's exactly a child education expert.
You want to hear a conspiracy theory? You want it just for funsies here? You're gonna probably like this. So,
Sure.
all right, you know what seeding is in media, like with like Marvel and like WWE and shit.
Seating?
Yeah, so like in the WWE, for example, you'll have characters cut a promo, and then in the background you'll have another character just like lurking in the background, or you'll promote something.
Yeah.
Right.
I know what you mean.
Or you'll have like a
You're
poster
planting
for
seeds. I get
right.
what you
Yeah.
mean.
So Linda McMahon and then Trump have had a many year relationship. Okay. Do you remember when they did the Epstein thing with the binders? And they like walked out with
Yeah,
all
I remember they arrested all the pedophiles.
right, yeah, okay. So they had the whole binders come out under Trump and all this shit, and they were like showing the interns carry, and then when it was this big press PR thing, you know what that felt like to me? That felt very Linda McMahon. Like that sounds.
It did feel Linda
yeah,
McMahon.
it's like oh, we're gonna put this in the background. It's gonna be oh, you discovered it. Like you know, like I definitely feel like if it's not Linda McMahon, it's definitely Trump. Something Trump learned from interacting with him over many years. Like
if Trump could do anything, remove Linda McMahon from Secretary of Education. My God, what a fucking random position. And make her in charge of like the kind of like I would say performance or like the different. For example, when you have a rally with the head of ICE. Have like a guy come out and have him slam him through a table, and he says,
yeah,
like
she should be in a different position. I agree.
like
than
Mr.
education.
Cartel on a T-shirt, you know.
I actually don't disagree with that. I think that she's being wasted as the education secretary. Although I think if you are a fan of Trump policy, then she's been very cutthroat in executing her policy and agenda. So like, I know you don't like the Trump education policy. Like, however, she has got a lot of the things that she has pushed with the education done, whether you like those or not, is a whole different thing.
She did what she was told to do.
Yeah, which
but I
mean,
want education. I want education experts managing education.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she did it. So I guess you're not disputing that she's not effective at what she wanted to get done, right?
Well, no,
like,
no, she's
just effective in ways you don't like.
She's like a Soviet bureaucrat.
Yeah, so yeah, I will agree with that.
She's given a checklist of things to achieve. And despite the costs and despite the obvious side effects, she will keep Chernobyl running.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think that the problem is I think we fall on different sides on the education thing. Now I would prefer more education experts involved in it. I think we would disagree on which education experts.
You would like more education experts involved in your education?
Yeah, it's a crazy thought, right? But like I think we would disagree on which experts, but I think we could both agree on it. I also agree. I wish I don't know if I want her fired.
A teacher would be good.
Sure. But I would like her moved to a different role personally. I think there's better roles for her.
Look again. Make her like some sort of like press secretary, where she just like manages Trump rallies. If she could like set up like Trump like body slamming somebody, or like she could set up some real. She should have like Marco Rubio do a Sergeant Slaughter's type heel turn, and make him side with the make Marco Rubio come out and side with the for like a week, and then Trump body slams him, and he comes back to America.
Trump's chief of staff?
What's her name? Susan Weil, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know, Susan Wiles has been kind of in the background. I almost think Linda McMahon would be a better chief of staff than Susan Wiles, personally.
I have no clue. I mean,
yeah, exactly. I've never heard of Linda McMahon
manage. Well, no, I've never heard of Linda McMahon being in such a role. I mean, I only know her from wrestling. But can I one last person?
She's always been man. She owns a bunch of companies.
Look, I could be purging all day. Yeah, but owning a company and
yeah, I mean, I'm saying for manage. Yeah, I'm saying managerial wise, it's kind of a thing. Like
Tulsi Gabbard, purge Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, she has done nothing.
Yeah, I don't like her Syrian fucking personality, not personality, connection. That is worrisome. But I do like some of the stuff she's done. I don't know that I think that this is as big a scandal as they're pushing with the Obama stuff. I think it's more of tit for tat when they're like, oh, you came for me for this bullshit. We're gonna come for y'all now. Which I guess is fair game, whether you like it or not. But I don't necessarily like it though, because of the partisanship aspect. I think it would be better to let sleeping dogs lie and just move forward instead of being a sorry winner. It's good to be a graceful winner than a sorry, but that's not Trump style. But I don't know. She hasn't done anything yet that's made me be like, fire her. She is on my watch list. If she fucks up, I'm gonna be like, yeah, you're done. Like if
Well,
like something gets leaked to another
my-
country, that would be probably where I'm at on that.
I mean, there's a few things. I mean, there's like statements I could point to specifically, but I feel like that's boring of me just pointing out all of the time she'd said things that are like Russian biolabs and like. But if she's going out there after Russia invades
Biolabs.
Ukraine and she's talking about the Russian biolabs, her job, her only like not her only job, but her main job is to look at the intelligence, identify what's important, present it to the President of the United States, prepare it for the presidential daily brief. That is her main responsibility. And if she, while looking at all the facts of what was going on in 2022, thought that biolabs was of something of import that people should pay attention to, if that is at all an indication of who she is, then I think that one job of identifying good information and sorting out the bad information is the worst possible thing that she could be at. If she was chief surfer or chief like pull-up gal or chief like like Hawaiian spirit instructor, like chi manager, if she was, chief podcaster, then yeah, fucking fantastic. But her job is to sort through intelligence, and she's falling for the dumbest gimmicks around. Either the stuff put out by Bashar al-Assad or the stuff put out directly by the Russians. And now she's supposed to manage that information for the president of the United States. It is the most important intelligence position in the country. And so I think that it should be held by somebody who's a career intelligence professional, not somebody who has National Guard service, and that's really it. Like, oh, I once read classified information. Was her experience in classified information? I have consumed it once, which is not really a good indication of whether or not you can sort through the entirety of the information collected in the United States and present it to the president. And one way you could have checked to see if she was doing a good job is seeing if Trump was giving out good information intelligence-wise. And considering Trump said that the Ukrainians got encircled around Kursk, considering we've heard Trump put out a bunch of stuff that, has been a little subpar. Hell, I just saw Marco Rubio say in the last 12 hours that 60,000 Russians died in July. It's nonsense. 60. It's nowhere close to that. It's 60,000. It's complete bullshit. And I mean, I'm sure the Ukrainians would have been ecstatic to hear those numbers if they were true. They're just not true, and I know they're bullshit.
What are the?
And I'm trying to.
What are the real numbers?
Yeah.
Like, that's interesting, right there. Like, I don't like the reporting of the war numbers are almost like unbelievable, right? Like they're like World War II.
The Ukrainians for that month reported something 1/4 the size. Why would the Ukrainians?
Yeah, they don't have any reason.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And to be clear,
they're also not Hamas.
Marco
totally
Rubio also
situation.
Marco Rubio previously claimed that for the entirety of last year, the Russians lost 100,000 killed. Now they lost 60,000 killed just in July. The numbers don't really add up. Now, whether or not that's just an error or a mistake, like I already don't trust this administration when it comes to filtering information or getting like accurate information to the people. I like the DC crime press conference was just an example of that. But Tulsi Gabbard just makes that bad situation worse. We need somebody with a rational, balanced head who can really be like, Mr. President, no, that's AI. That's their. We need somebody to do that. We need a presidential information sorter. We need somebody to be an intelligence head who has some intelligence.
I want to say it like this, right? With the biolabs thing, the biolabs thing is a little more convoluted than I think you're giving credit for. There were labs in Ukraine that like were protected that we had to protect, or they protected to like get them out, right? If I recall correctly, the Wuhan lab thing was like had some kind of indirect funding from USAID or something, if I recall, and that's where COVID had like she wasn't the national security director at the time when she was bringing some of this stuff up, right? Was she on one of the committees? Maybe, I don't remember, but she would not have been who I would have picked to be the national security advisor. However, like I don't think she's done anything yet that's been like, like with Hegseth, you could point and go, this is leak number 3. With Bondi, I could go, she's contradicted herself. With Patel, I could be like, he let loose this video that was even more doctored than the video we had, right? Like, I don't think there's anything yet that like she's done that's just nearly as egregious as those, even if she wouldn't have been my first pick, right? Like, and I'll even grant you with McMahon, I think she's been effective with what she's been told to do, and I think it's almost time to move her to a different position. So if Trump is like serious about getting stuff done, whatever, I'll even grant that one, and I would rather have like experts in charge, whether we disagree. I just don't know that you can point to something specific with Gabbard and be like, that's it. That's why she should be fired. That's happened since she's became the NSA director or National Security Advisor or whatever.
I mean, the things I would point to is things that wouldn't anger Trump. Like, I don't like Tulsi Gabbard buying into the election stolen cult, and now we know the truth of how it's just the same, like, we can't accept we lost an election nonsense. It's really
I wish we just
kind of pathetic, but that's it's kind of pathetic for the country, and it worries me because it makes me think that it's impossible for one party to accept they lost an election ever. And I mean, like, the Democrats, as sour as they get, like, Biden didn't like, I'm gonna hold and we're gonna, like, there was no any threat of that, and the continuance of like this just like devotion to this like election god is it feels cultish, and it feels like the type of thing that would precede you lose an election fair and square, and you say, never mind. And if you've created an environment, a culture environment party, where you just say, oh, the election was stolen, and the majority of Republicans do believe it, I mean, it'll be much easier to justify, especially if you make the stakes as high as my enemies are communists that want to groom your kids and destroy America and or whatever it is. You get the idea. If you're listening to Matt Wall, Charlie Kirk every night.
No, you're no, that's fair. There are people that do that message. I do want to maybe give you a little hope. I don't think that, okay, I think the Epstein thing really actually goes to the opposite point here that you want to make, right? And I think maybe this will give you some hope. I've hosted several panels now, and I will openly admit the Epstein thing was like real low on my voting priority, like maybe not even my top 20, okay? And
dude,
so
I didn't even come into my mind at all.
Right.
To be honest with you.
Yeah,
I really didn't think Trump was a diddler until honestly.
No, and this is gonna sound bad when I say it. Like, I mean, at this point, bro, like, and maybe you could be there with me. If someone came out and had definitive proof that the lizards were taking adrenochrome from kids, I'd be like, oh, great, aliens are coming tomorrow, cool. Like I don't know, maybe I've just lived through too many world-changing events at this point. Nothing surprised. Every politician's a pedo. Oh, it doesn't surprise me. Like, and so when I'm going to voting. And these are not good things. It's not good things that I'm at this stage. The Epstein thing was very low. I was voting on the border. I'm voting on the economy. I'm voting on immigration. I'm voting on some other issues, right, that are like directly affecting me. And if my choice is this Biden who is basically telling me fuck you, and then or the Republicans who are like, yeah, we can benefit you, and I'm seeing direct benefits from like the border and my ranch, and I see these things. Obviously, I'm going to vote Republican, right? And so whenever we're talking about the Epstein thing, I think though there is a large segment of Republicans that are very pissed, and I've hosted several panels, and it's like not even just Republicans, it's independents. They're like, we feel betrayed. This seems like a cover up. We voted for Trump to not be a uniparty guy, and the epitome of the uniparty like idea is the Epstein thing, right? It's like it crossed both sides, and they're both all diddlers, and they're protecting these people, and
the way Trump talked about it was like, how dare you even ask me about it?
Yeah,
it was in such a self-righteous way.
Yeah, and then we've heard the argument, well, he was one of the first, and on the right, I hear this on these panels all the time, he was one of the first to go and get Epstein with the FBI and all this, and as me, this isn't moving me at all. I'll be honest, I know it's bad, but I didn't vote because of Epstein. Now, a lot of Republicans though I know people are probably gonna say I'm evil for that, but when it comes to priorities, my priority is my homegirl was killed 3 months ago by a cartel member. She was strangled in bed next to her child. That matters to me a lot more than this metaphorical person I've never met that was on Epstein. You know, like I'm sorry, I'm just like I care more about my local issues, right? And maybe that makes me evil. I don't know. But whenever I'm sitting here going and I'm hearing like this shit from other Republicans where they're like, "Oh, I'm mad." Like I think there's a lot of Republicans that are like holding Trump's feet to the fire on this. This shit's not going away, and I know that like people on the left are jumping. You're like, "He's a pedo. He this thing," and like it rings hollow to me because I feel like we were lied to about so many things. And I know that's a whataboutism, but on the right, there's I wouldn't go as far as say it's a civil war, but like the people on the right, there's people that are going, Gibbs, you need to care about this more. And I'm like, okay, well, offer me a solution, right? And nobody's offered me a solution. It's just like, we got to do this. I don't know. I think maybe that go like you should be less concerned about, oh, they're just sweeping it under the rug because I don't see that happening on the right. They're like very pissed about the Epstein.
I
thing.
guess for me, it's not even just the fact that Trump could be a diddler. I guess it's the fact that he's so nervous about even having this conversation about these files, and he's really like trying to get the media to stop talking about it. And he kind of had the backlash effect of when you want the media not to talk about it, and of course they talk about it. And he's done everything he can to distract from it, and it just naturally drags my attention when someone says, "Don't look at the red door. The red door is not interesting. There's nothing cool behind the glowing, beautiful red door." Like at a certain point, I was like, "Well, fuck!" I got open the red door, and so for me, like it over time, with the amount of attention it's gotten, and with the continued resistance to release anything, it has slowly convinced me, like, oh my God, he might actually be in those things. He might actually be in like a file. At first, before, I thought likely it was just kind of like a tedious connection between Trump and Epstein. That is probably that they met up once at a party or something. But the longer he digs in on this, the more I'm like, what the hell is he actually hiding in those things? It's
Yeah,
not
it's
like
a bad look.
it's not like it's gonna hurt the kids if he releases it with redacting their names and any explicit images.
Well, and this is why I brought up the Linda McMahon thing of the seating. I think this even goes to this point. Is it feels like when they did this, like I could almost have seen her in like an in meeting, be like, "Hey, why don't you do this?" Right? And like in the WWE, we would do this, and he goes, "That's a good idea, Linda. Why don't you do that?" Right? And if that's true, and this is like I said, a conspiracy theory that I have, that makes this much worse because it seems like he's manufacturing the story. And they always plan to manufacture the story, right? Like it's like we told you one thing, and now we're bait and switching you. And like, I mean, I don't like it, but like it's not enough for me to change because I need my fucking taxes lowered, and I need my ag to be doing good, like. And this is another thing.
Your deficit.
Well, yeah, and this is why I brought up the ag thing earlier. I was not happy when he fucking said he was going to do an invitation system just because, certain ag donors that were big. I forgot who Monsanto got bought by, but the used to be Monsanto, whoever it is now, I think it's Bayer, maybe I don't remember. But they're over here pushing. Hey, Trump, we need our illegals working. I'm like, nah, fam. This is bullshit. You said everybody, let's fucking be consistent. Like, and I know that's gonna make other people mad. Like, there's different say, but like, I will definitely like sit here and hold him to accountable on certain things. I wish more Republicans. Like, I think there are Republicans do like hold him more accountable than like people on the left want to give them credit for. There's much more infighting in the Republicans.
I mean,
we just
when
unify
we think about it
from
from Trump's perspective, I mean, while as much as he likes the aesthetics of a hard line on immigration, a worker who is paid under the table and is paid below minimum wage with zero safety standards and no way to report you to the authorities, that sounds like the perfect worker to a man like Donald Trump. I mean, him like kind of flip-flopping on that is too surprising.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I actually am a little concerned, like because we have midterms coming up, right? And I wanted to bring this up to you as well. Democrats are like at an all-time low for approval ratings, and a lot of Republicans are almost acting like victory is assured, and like I'm not sold on that. Because it's early. Like anybody could change. Dems can get new leadership. I kind of want to see what you think about what they should. What
and
what
look,
the
like
is.
I think Dems are unpopular. I think Republicans are popular too. Dems could be
the Epstein thing is making him extremely unpopular. I think, but like I know that reports show Trump hasn't been hurt because of Epstein and polling, but I just don't believe that. Like Republicans are mad about
the last congressional the average Democrat, like They do like an average Democrat, like a
12%
generic
is what I
Democrat
saw
poll.
today.
The last number I saw was up 5%.
Oh,
Either way, though,
yeah.
either way, it's up. That's they're up, and
Oh,
the
they're
historical
up?
trend is you win the first you after you win an election, the first midterm for that party they lose. That's
You're
the
right.
historical trend. So, I mean, it's the idea that like, oh, it's in the bag for anybody. I think is silly because you can't just ask history to save you and be passive about it. Obviously, if you're a Democrat, but if you're a Republican, like historical trends, do exist for a reason. And Trump now can't blame Trump is a much better spitballer than he is a tennis player. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
He's
like,
much better at firing than playing defense.
he's a big picture guy. No, I definitely think the Epstein thing is hurting them more than they know. Like, I feel like people getting polled are just not the ones the right people to poll about that. Like,
I think it was a big vibe shift. I don't know if it was particularly like the issue that shifted a bunch of independents, but I think that felt like a straw, and it was a vibe shifting moment. That's for sure.
well, I also I don't know where you got your thing, but I just saw like yesterday CNN has like the Dems like overall as a party like their approval rate is like 12% or all time low.
Oh
And
no, I'm not. No, I said Democrats versus Republican congressional ballot
oh
midterm up 5.
okay, yeah, okay, well, yeah, that makes more sense then. But so yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if the Republicans kept both the House and the Senate. That would be. I can see them
Well,
keeping one, but
if you get your operation done down in Texas, maybe.
well, yeah, and that when did they get to that? I know we're over time,
Hey,
but I could be over.
could you let me know how many seats you just write a number
Abbott
of how
said
many
10, Bo.
Republicans deserve seats on a big placard and have Greg Abbott roll to DC and hold it up, and we'll just give you those many seats. Just
Well,
skip the whole process. Just
this-
tell us how many Republicans there should be and how many Democrats there should be.
Hey.
I don't know if you saw the Jesse Waters program. Did you see his program of him talking about gerrymandering down in Texas, where he said that Democrats have lost the responsibility of being the opposition party and have to be placed in a permanent majority by an effort of both taking out the census data for those who are undocumented, basically removing the funding for those districts,
I'm glad we got to this.
as well as gerrymandering in a way by which will guarantee that Republicans maintain a majority forever. Like that was on Fox News. That's the #1 cable news channel in the continental United States.
Okay, just for fun. Listen, so Abbott said 10 because he's talking about even doing a more egregious redistricting now because the Dems are holding up. At least he hasn't. I don't, bro. I say that Paxton tried to push something just the other night, so I'll take that back. We'll see how this plays out. But when I'm looking at this though, it was hilarious to me that they went to Illinois and they picked like the most gerrymandered district of like all maybe any districts ever gerrymandered. Like the argument I'm hearing from Republicans is like, look at all these dim states. 40% of people vote Republican in this state and they have no seats. And I don't know if it was Illinois, if it was. I don't remember which state it was. It was one of the northeastern ones if it wasn't Illinois. But they're mentioning these things over and over. It's like the Dems have already gerrymandered the shit out of things. And then when the Republicans take the playbook and do it back, it's bad. I think the more interesting question is the census thing, though. Like,
wait. Okay, the gerrymandering. No, I think the gerrymandering is important because I think the trend in some states has been in the other direction. I think gerrymandering is something that's unpopular. I think it's not something you can argue from a democratic perspective. It is, you're rigging an election. What you're doing is if you can draw the map in a certain way so that the only districts that like matter are the districts that have the voters that you want. That's politicians choosing the voter, not voters choosing.
Have you seen the districts in Texas, the before and after? Just if not, I'm gonna send you interactive.
But in my state, we used to have in 2003 some of the most gerrymandered maps in continental United States, and we got rid of them. And because we had an independent redistricting commission, which is what I think that every state should be held in observance to. But the idea of this kind of escalating gerrymandering arms, this is a very scary concept to me. And I think Texas should back down because, man, I don't want to redistrict and make it so like, okay, I guess Andy Harris, the Republican's going to have to run in Baltimore County. Good luck. I guess that's what we're doing now. We're just going to all just pick off every vulnerable House member in any state where they're not the majority.
Yeah, I'm gonna find the map here for you. I got an interactive map I can send you if I just give me a second. But the what's interesting to me about this is if you look at the map, the one that's the new one looks less gerrymandered. Actually, the Texas one. There's specifically here. I live in San Antonio, right? And one of the
Connecting the two cities though is crazy.
yeah, I had like I'm trying to find that here. I'm sorry, I keep distracted. But you brought up the point I wanted to bring up is I actually think it's hurting people locally, right? Because like it's luckily it's not my area, San Antonio, but the area of San Antonio on the other side is being combined with Austin, and neither one of them are going to be able to be affected locally, like for like deals. Like imagine if like
Nope.
San Antonio and Austin are competing directly for like what just happened. So PAX has been in San Antonio for years. Austin was made a bid for it. PAX has gone last year, and San Antonio said, "Okay, we're going to build a tech center." And Austin, it's not fair to the locals there because they didn't get the support they needed from their kind of thing. Like there's problems like with this with the way it's drawn currently. I I'm almost of your opinion. I think if we did independent, impartial gerrymandering, that would solve it. I'm also of the opposite opinion. I think either one is fine. We either just everybody gerrymanders in the states that they are currently in power in, or nobody does, right? And I feel like both those lead to it. I know that that's probably not one, but I think the bigger issue is the census, right? Like because that's like tons of seats being given for non-citizens to people voting. Like you don't see an issue with that. Like, do you think citizens should come first in regards to voting power?
When it comes to the vote being made,
Yeah,
not when it comes to like the necessary strength of any individual vote.
What do you mean by that?
Like some states a vote is worth more because there's less people, and some states a vote is worth like for example, like the individual voter in a state like California is going to have their vote worth technically less than one who's going to be in a state where
like Montana.
Yeah, Montana. It's like a complicated. It's a complicated.
Yeah, it's the big
but
state,
it's
small
kind of
state
like
kind of thing.
But like these undocumented people aren't voting in elections. It's just that the districts that they're in, because there's more people, therefore they have they get more funding and they have that representation. I don't necessarily think that removing that representation is a smart idea because, but what are you saying? I guess we're saying that, well, we are only going to acquire resources for the people who we know for sure are citizens. We're going to leave the ones that are non-citizens kind of without resources, or we're going to say we're not going to acquire resources for them, or that there shouldn't be leverage for those districts to acquire resources for them, even though they're going to use the streets. They're going to use they're going to need police if somebody gets stabbed. They're going to need all these same resources.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I see. That's. I mean, I'm torn on this, right? Like I think the founders when they put the small state, big state stuff. I think that they
isn't it simple? Just if you're not an American citizen, you don't. I feel like this. It's easy. It's simple, and it allows us to still be able to manage people who are not American citizens in our census data.
This is really like a fundamental like issue that we've had since they talk about this in the Federalist Papers as the small state big state issue, right? Like used to slavery, right? And they had the 3/5 compromise, and that was bad for litany of reasons, right? But then we like after that we've had the big state.
What were you aiming for 2/5?
yeah, basically no. I mean, but like when we look at this though, you're right about people being disproportionately affected. Like at the same time, the people that get hurt the most by this are like rural, right? Like so you're right, like Montana might get an outsized vote, right? However, I'll use Texas as actually a really good example, right? Say I live in like, I don't know, Three Rivers, Texas. My vote doesn't matter at all. Right? I might get one representative, but like if we're voting on like a state issue, I'm going to be over. There's a map. I'll see if I can find this right. It's a map of the population DFW and then all the states that are smaller than DFW. So like on one hand, DFW is getting like no representation, right? At the national level. 30. I think it's something like 29 states have less population than DFW alone. Right? Mm-hmm. And then on the flip side, they're getting an outsized influence on local statewide elections. Right? So I don't know what the solution is, but there needs to be some kind of solution. And because the census is like, I just don't know here, man. This is it's a real complicated question. Like something's got to be done. I don't know if not counting illegals is the answer. I do we go back to a fifth compromise kind of thing? I don't think that's what we want to do. Like people getting a portion of the people. Do we make it so that only American citizens are the ones that are counted? You know, and then people.
I'm more than comfortable with the system. That is, if you're an American citizen, you vote. If you're not an American citizen, you don't vote. It seems like a simple way to do it. And if
what about a local
resources, if we deprive the resources of undocumented people, you're not only just hurting those undocumented people, you're also hurting the American people, the American citizens who are living in those areas are now going to have more down services that they are not going to have the sufficient resources for, the sufficient investment for.
I could maybe even live with the current system being kept, but let me ask you this: with the census, let me ask you this. Okay, so I think New York Supreme Court ruled against New York, where they wanted the city where they wanted to allow legal immigrants to vote in local elections. I think California still has one, a county that still does it. I think there's maybe another state that has one. I'm not sure.
Yeah. They tried to do it in my city a while ago.
Right. Do you have a problem with the legal immigrants voting in local elections, or do you think that should be exclusively for
legal immigrants? Yeah, a legal immigrant can vote in my election. Yeah,
not a citizen, but like a green card holder.
Yeah, if as long as somebody can show a long-term investment in the community, that they're going to be here for like a sufficient period of time, like 20 years or something.
Can I pitch you why that might be bad?
Sure, if you want to.
So, let's say I own a ranch, right? I do own a ranch, right? So, and I decide I want to be run for local office. And we've established legal immigrants can vote in like Peggy, Texas, or Campbellton, Texas, or wherever I fucking decide I'm going to run. And now I bring in 50 workers. And these elections are decided by about 20 people. And all 50 of these guys now been here over a year and they're established. And they can vote in the local election. Now they could vote me in office over the people that live there as citizens. Do you see that not as a potential problem that could occur once and I'm not saying these people doing that now are doing that. I see this as more of like the danger in the future.
Well, if you live in a town of 20 people, I would hope that the registration is managed in a way where it could not be done like that. I know in my city you had to be able to prove residency for a number of years if you want to not run for office or vote. And you had to do it through providing mail and stuff like that. So having mechanisms in place to protect that, I think is fine. And also I don't think this is something that if a community decides because they're a community of 20 people and and tons of migrant labor comes through all the time for very small periods and they decide that it doesn't make sense for them, then they don't have to. But for a lot of communities, that's not going to be a problem. If you're a community of 100,000 people, a group of 50 transitory workers is not going to really change it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just waiting to be abused. I see it. This is also the kind of thing that, okay, so say they were all given amnesty. Now all these people are now given amnesty, and they can establish they've lived there for 10 years. Wouldn't that change voting patterns quite a bit over
Well, I mean, if somebody lives in the community for 10 years, they've kind of established themselves as part of the community. They have an investment. They're paying taxes. So I mean, they're paying taxes into the community. They're adding to the local economy, probably by working in some way. Maybe their kids are going to school there, which is a possibility. At a certain point, they have a significant enough buy-in, and if they're contributing, then I don't see why they shouldn't have some say when it comes to choosing who should be in charge of the city or city council. The whole point of democracy, in my mind, is to have the most input of people from across an area, so that they can all give perspective. I only have my perspective. I don't have your perspective, Gibbs.
Sure.
Right? And so by both of us voting, the idea is that we're both adding our 2 cents into the system from our lived experience. And I don't think by expanding that ever so slightly, in most small cities, that it would really be a problem. It's not something I feel particularly passionately about, but I don't really see it as a crisis.
You don't see it as an artificial inflation of like to gain like house seats, like by like some of the states that are allowing the illegals to be there in like such droves and giving them
I
benefits.
mean,
Like,
when you talk about like in giving them benefits, it a lot. Some people are like getting social security cards that are not in their name and collect
sure,
benefits illegally. Like that's not the city giving them
that's not
benefits.
what I'm talking about.
That's people like abusing the system. There is examples, for example, in my state, if you're an undocumented kid and you're growing up here, you can get like student aid as well. Right? That's an example of a benefit
That's
that you can
wild.
get
Okay.
as somebody who's contributing here that most Marylanders are actually like pretty fine with, at least in my experience. Because they kind of like see them as just like parts of the community generally.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would be okay with like a local.
I mean,
deciding that.
we're talking about we're talking about people who like they like left like Guatemala when they were 3, right? For most people, they're just like they're Marylanders. They eat blue crabs like the rest of us.
No, I mean, and to be clear, I mean, my policy has always been strong border, kick them out, let's get some reform and get the people back in here. We make it easier. I definitely am very pro immigration overall. That's been a thing I've always been for. Like, I have a friend, we call him Juan. His name is Juan. Like, there's a whole thing. He's Juan too.
Is that by chance why you call him Juan?
No, well, yeah. The joke was I worked. I was the GM at Wingstop. We had 3 Juans. There was Juan 1, Juan 2, Juan 3, and he was Juan 2. This guy's living the American dream. He works like 3 minimum wage jobs. He just bought a house. He's like, he called me last week. He goes, Gibbsy, my wife, she's going to have 3 kids, or a 3rd kid. I'm like, that's exciting. He's like, I live the American dream. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I got fat American wife. I buy a new Porsche. I got a house. I'm like, this guy doesn't sleep. You know, he works like 3 minimum wage jobs. Like, he's got good with money. You know, that we want more of that. Well, I want thousands of those people, right? You know, it's just like we need to know who's here, and we need security because my friends are fucking dying. Like, it's a real problem out here. Like, people's property is being damaged, and like the immigration issue wasn't an issue for anybody until like Abbott and DeSantis started shipping them to other states, and then now now people recognize it's a problem, and like people want to say, oh, y'all are all just racist, but like it is a problem down here that like people don't understand, and like most of us want reform. We want better immigration.
I don't see how like the like the filling up the planes or like the political PR stunt. And honestly, I
mean, we could have done without some of the PR stunts.
People. And definitely when like a lot of these people, like some of these people had immigration court dates that were like being set into whack because they were being used for this like PR stunt, and we're playing with people's lives, you know.
Sure. The immigration court thing is a whole thing. There's a lot of the problems that we had with the catch and release. It's like a real complicated issue to like something like with Alligator Alcatraz, for example. They're offered to go through the whole process.
Well, no, I think it's real. I think it's real simple. You don't take people who have immigration court dates and are all trying to go through the process and are trusting you when you shuffle them onto a plane, send them to a place where they've never been before, and tell them that it's helping you. And oh, well, you have a court date in 20 hours across the country. Good luck.
Let me give you.
That's real simple. What's real simple is just don't do that. Just say you want to limit illegal immigration. Don't fuck up these random people.
Just on a flip side. Okay, just hear me out, Hilly. So let me give you a scenario, and you tell me what you think of this. I catch you jumping over the border, and you land. Your feet have landed on American ground. I open up your wallet, and you has your Mexican papers all in there. You're like clearly a Mexican citizen. We run your name, not an American citizen. Now, we just caught you. We literally caught you as you landed on the border. Do I need to give you a trial and catch you and let you release here in the U.S.? Or should I be able to speedline the process and be like, okay, we literally caught you in the act. Can we just take you over to the border, the way you cross, the closest crossing, and release you on the other side? Like, do we need it? Like, and I know that's not exactly what's happening, but like, that's like, do you see what's... But you're going to argue that, we got to give them a trial.
Those people at the border that get caught are unless they ask for asylum,
which is a whole different issue, sure.
Was a whole different issue. Then they usually are just like either sent on the other side of the border,
but they're
or
not
transported out.
They're not done.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not. They're put in holding facilities, and then they're supposed to have a hearing. And under Biden, a lot of them were being catched and released. And they never showed up to the hearing, right? And so now they're being held in holding facilities, which is a different problem. Like, because now we're having to build more holding facilities.
If somebody's actively jumping over the border, they remove them over to Mexico. It is a more expedited process that if they find somebody who's undocumented and say,
but that's not what's happening.
Like Minneapolis.
No, that's not what's happening. That hasn't been what's happening. Like, they'll go and they get put in the holding facilities outside Eagle Pass or in Huntsville now. There's all sorts of them. Or the one out, like, they're put there and they're held now until their hearing. And now they're sent out after their hearing. But, like, why is it necessary to even go through this process? Why can't we just do an identification process and get
Yeah,
it
okay.
out? Like, do you
Let
see
me be
the
honest with you.
problem I
I
have here?
don't. This is going to be my biggest problem. It's not that if somebody just jumps over the border. Obviously, I think it should be a quick process to get rid of them.
Okay.
But I don't believe. Of course, it depends on why they're here. If they're claiming asylum, there's
Sure.
different conditions. But I don't trust this administration on immigration. There's probably the issue I trust them one of the least on, just due to how badly they've managed like the civil rights angle of this when it comes to non-American citizens and American citizens, people here who were illegally and people here who were legally. Women being deported to foreign men's prisons. A gay Venezuelan hairdresser being accused of being an MS-13 because he had a mom tattoo. Getting deported to prisons where they were reportedly abused. And then they come back here and they retell these horror stories where they came to America to flee political persecution. They came here thinking this is the land of opportunity, this is the land of freedom, and then where do they ended up? They end up with their heads shaven back to back, shuffling around. And when I listen to audio of Trump talking to foreign dictators saying, "Let's do the homegrowns next,"
Do you
like this type of stuff creates a lot of anxiety in me.
Well,
So when it comes to like broadly changing the rules to make it much easier for Trump to just deport people without legal oversight, yeah, you're not gonna get a lot of charitability from me. I guess.
that's fair. I can see that argument. Okay. What about, so you mentioned asylum a few times. Um, some of these asylum claims are pretty outrageous. I like one of them, for example. I think the famous one that we know, what was it? Was it Abrego Garcia? His claim for asylum was basically like, if you really look into it, was that he was part of one gang and he got too dangerous, so he was trying to get asylum to get away from another gang. Right? Like, do we think that's real asylum seeking? Do we need to reform what our asylum process is that we accept for asylum? Like, do we need to amend the treaty? Like, I think that asylum is a valid reason to come to America, and I don't want people trying to escape legitimate asylum. But I also don't think you should be allowed to come here, say, if you're part of one gang and the gang shit gets too bad and you chose the wrong side and now you're coming over here. Like, I don't think that makes you worthy of asylum necessarily. Like, you see
Well,
what
I
I'm
mean,
saying?
I think it depends. Because like somebody, I hate to have this conversation. If somebody's in a
conversation we gotta have.
gang,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
if somebody's in a gang, that doesn't necessarily mean they're a criminal. I know it's a weird thing to say, but it's true. And also, if somebody has left a gang, they're still be associated with that gang. So, for example, it's you can be in a gang and not be a criminal because you're with the gang for protection because if that's just the place you live. That's a real thing that happens.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to excuse all the criminals. I'm just saying that
You don't have a
plus
choice
people who
sometimes.
have been in gangs because you had no opportunities when you were a kid, and then you fucking leave the gang because you get horrified by what you see. Like you being in that gang could put a target on your back for life, right? And so these types of things, I think, could eventually lead to valid asylum applications. And so unless we know the specifics, I would be hesitant to say if you were in a gang, you cannot enter the United States. That's why I think it should be based more on criminality.
Okay, I could be open to that. The criminality more on the criminality, unless the gang in and of itself argument. That okay, I could be open to that. I I think the asylum process is just too easy breezy at the moment, or it was under Biden. Because anybody can claim asylum for almost anything, and then you have to investigate, and it takes so long, and like it's resources. I think the real solution is really the reform
I understand, and look,
and make it easier for people to come on non-asylum.
if we could streamline the processes, I'm 100% on board with that. But I don't want whatever our solution to be just like let's cast a much like more narrow net and just catch less people. Like the goal should be that we're getting rid of phony applications and that we're making it easier for the people who need applications to know what to do and to be able to do it. Because the goal shouldn't just be to get less people here. It should also be that, hey, if somebody needs asylum, and we could be of some help in some way, maybe we could be of some help in some way.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I think that, yeah, and I think we agree actually. Like, I think making it easier and streamlining is the biggest issue. It's too expensive, it's too difficult, just the normal, and that's part of the reason why people are using the asylum like claim because it's like a catch-all, and then once they're here, they can disappear or they can take
Now,
like longer and then apply like try to get in different ways to get like citizenship or legal identity. You know, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with we need to streamline the process. A lot. I also just think for the security aspect, we need to know here. I think there's also the inverse of what you said though is important, and this is why I'm really big on we need to get the people here out, is because the way the cartels work is after they bring you here, you either pay them a fee or you have to like update your location. And say you're like, I don't know, Consuelo working at the hotel, and the cartel knows somebody's going to the hotel. They're going to come up to you one day and be like, "Hey, we got you in here. Give us this key card to this room today, and then don't be around." And then they give you that room, and they kill somebody in the room, and they disappear. And like she's now like an accessory to murder, even though she's maybe not committed a crime in the 30 years she's been here. And like that's the problem with the cartels, is they're in it for the long con. So you might not even be associated with the game, and then all of a sudden your criminality factor comes in because they have you by the balls. And if you tell the cartel no, they kill you, right? Like so, it's also the other side of that that's a problem. And I don't know what the real solution here is for this, unless we get people out and then we streamline. Like I don't know. Like I mean, do you?
well,
Just,
it's just I also think that that we have a certain amount of opportunity in the United States, and while we should say that people have a right to be an American necessarily,
I'm glad we agree with
people
that.
are going to pursue it. People are going to pursue it because people in their
They
love
should.
for their children and their want for a better future. You know, that dream is, you know, people hope is unconquerable. And I remember talking to my dad once about like, and he had a very bad view of like people who you know, come into the country illegally. I remember asking like, if I was like a baby and you know you had like nothing in like, you know, one of these countries, would you like break the law and jump the border if you thought it would give me like a better future? He's like, don't ask me that question. That's
Yeah,
a stupid question. Don't ask me
yeah,
that fucking
absolutely.
question. It's like it's a terrible question. He's like, okay, Dad, I'll never ask it again. But my point is being like these people are going to pursue it, so we should find a way by which it can be done transparently. We can see who's doing what. Because if we decide that the best thing to do is just crack down everywhere, everyone out, you know, what we're gonna do is drive a lot of these people more underground, and who can prey on them
Well,
underground? Where are the opportunities when they're more underground?
well, that's a good point.
Who's gonna profit when it's more underground? Because if you take away all of the legal avenues or you make it very difficult, all you're doing is making a big fat billboard for the cartels and the coyotes.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think it just I don't know that it eliminates the problem. I think it does force it into a smaller, harder to get market, which has got its own issues. I do find it interesting that legal immigrants are pretty that have become citizens are very much like of the mind of a similar mindset on this though. They seem to be very much like we went through the process. Why shouldn't they have to do that, right? And I don't know. I agree with you. I don't think there's anything more American dream than being like, I'm coming to America for a better life and I'm going to get my piece of the pie. Like, I think that is the American dream, right? Like, you know, maybe there's the 50s American dream where, oh, I got a house and, you know, 2 kids or whatever. But like, I think that the fundamental American dream is like, I'm coming to a new country, you know, I'm becoming part of their culture.
There's a difference between being born American and choosing to become an American.
Yeah, I like and like. There's an expression in Texas. You know, you might not have been born in Texas, but you got to here as quick as you could. You know, it's the same kind of thing. I think that there's something to be said for that. That's why I'm pretty pro like legal immigration. I think we need reform, but yeah, I don't know with the census. It just feels like it's a nefarious attempt to gain like seats. Like to me, almost. You know, because the states that are benefiting from it are pretty much all one-sided, except for I guess Texas, and Texas is pretty much on the don't count them like list. Like you know what I'm saying? I don't know. Do you not like same thing with the gerrymandering? Some of these states have been gerrymandered all to hell, but you know suddenly Texas doesn't. And it's a problem. Like I get you want the impartial.
We
but do you
were
see-
talking about this earlier, but we're headed. It's not just there's other states that have done gerrymandering. Even though I think we're headed in the other direction. There's more attention to independent committees like doing this. More states are adopting independent committees and pushing this forward. We've gone a far away from the Lyndon B. Johnson, just fill up the bus and give me that election, baby. You know, we've come a little bit away from that type of engineering. What's different about this is that we're calling a special session to do it, right? Where there's going to be multiple items voted on the special session, but it's a special session essentially to do this. There's reporting from local Texas papers indicating that he was actually hesitant, Mr. Greg Abbott, to do it, and then Trump called him because of the seats that they wanted for the House, and that was something that ultimately swayed him. And I think fundamentally, when you're talking about districting, you should be concentrating on representation and making sure that your constituents are getting a voice that they desire and they have the right to, and it's your job to provide them. Instead of just trying to again choose your voters and choose the makeup of the House to your liking. Once you do that, what you're accepting is basically like a rigging of the state of affairs. You're accepting a one-party state with no avenue of a way out. And even if you accept that you want it to always be Republican in the state of Texas, there should always be the threat that one day it won't, to scare the people at the top of the totem pole and to remind them that, it's the power of the XYZ. And so I think this is dangerous because it's broken precedent when it comes to, it's not like the census in Texas just got finished. This isn't like
No.
they're going out of their way right before a midterm to change the map in order to garner a few more seats in what is expected to be a close midterm election. It is, and Donald Trump is explicitly saying this. And reporting indicates that he was a vital voice that pushed Greg Abbott forward on this. So I think that's pretty clear that this is bad for the country, and I fear that it's going to start an arms race, and I think it's really going to heighten the partisan divides that are.
Yeah, I am worried about the partisan divide. I think the arms race has already been started, though. I think this is just like the Republicans playing the game that's kind of been established. I don't know. What else did you have on topics before we get out of here? Anything else?
Just that the thing about the Garcia's case here in Maryland is that it wasn't just about like Garcia particularly. Like Garcia could end up being like a full-fledged criminal, and I still think he should be sent back to the United States. It's a question about keeping the process and Trump having to have powers above him. There are the checks and balances in its basic system. These are boring arguments. These are not arguments that are populist, but these are arguments that I do think are important, which is that the court said that you couldn't deport Garcia to one country.
Yeah, and then they put him to El Salvador.
And they deport him to that exact country that they said do not deport him to because of the risk. And
Yeah,
whether or not you like Garcia, whether or not you do like Garcia, doing that is defying the courts. And every time you hear Trump justify the different times he defied the courts, like when he pushed forward the planes full of the people, many of whom ended up not being the criminals they said they were, to El Salvador, like that was done against court orders. They rushed it, and then the excuses they put forward is pretty obviously them walking backwards from their conclusion, where they knew they wanted to defy the courts, and now they're just trying to scramble for an explanation afterwards. And that type of disregard is dangerous.
I think that this actually kind of touches another topic, which is kind of interesting here with when you read Garcia, right? Like, yeah, I agree. Sending him to the one country that he shouldn't have was bad, right? It's also optically bad. However, I've noticed this recently is that like Garcia, for example, looks like all of his purposes now that more and more infos come out, he looks like he's not maybe the hero that people like were like lifted up, right? Like he's maybe bad optically. And it's interesting. It's the same thing. Like, I don't know, maybe it's the Dems party leaders. Like, I know you don't always get to choose your battle. And I think Garcia might be a case of this happening. We can't choose the battle. But like with the gerrymandering thing, right? Oh, okay, we're going to leave Texas, all the Dems, and we're going to fight this. But then they go to Illinois and they go to like the most gerrymandered state. It's like they don't have there's like not a leadership on the Dem side right now where they're like, this is bad optically. Like, why? I don't understand. Like, don't pick this battle.
Well, I think
you know what I'm saying. That one might not be the same playbook, but you get. Well,
then immediately after George Floyd's murder, the Democrats should have said, "Well, no, I looked at some of his record, and it seems sometimes it's not a question about picking a perfect martyr. A martyr is made, right? Martyrs are not born.
Sure.
Something happens, and like for people, like I'm sure,
like the gay hairdresser would have been a better one to die on the hill over. I think then.
Well, it's not about dying over the hill. It's about if you allow him to get away with it, then what you're saying is he can defy the courts and deport anybody. Like Garcia could have been in charge of MS-13, and you have to send him back to the United States. You do not defy the courts when it comes to deporting whoever you want, whenever you want. That's definitely when he's also saying he wants to deport Americans. That's a dangerous slope we have to stay way away from.
Well, I think that would have the opposite result you want. Like, you say he was leader of MS-13, right? Like, and you were like, okay, we have to die. We can't let him get away with it.
Well,
you know, I get that. I get that. Like, hold on, I get that logic.
That's the test case. That's the strategy from Trump. The strategy is you start with. It's easy to say that the due process rights for scumbags don't matter. It's easy to say that, but then it's an even easier step after that to take away your rights.
Well,
and so
I
it's not a question
that.
about whether or not this should have been the biggest media circuit. What I am saying is that Democrats did have to fight them on that if they wanted to keep some amount of law and order when it comes to our immigration system.
I think I think maybe we're talking cross purposes. I'm not saying if y'all disagree with it, y'all didn't have to fight it, right? But, like, okay, you brought the gay hairdresser up, right? That one was a much more sympathetic one to people, right? And the media and the push was not near as much on that guy as it was on this. Now, you could have fought both battles and pushed one narrative more than the other, right? Media-wise. And the problem I'm saying with the Garcia one from your side, if I'm going to just be on the dim side for a moment, is that you push this guy, the narrative comes back, he's a scumbag, and now you've like not necessarily like alienated people, but you see people go, oh, well, maybe Trump is right about this. And I think you get a push this one direction over that, because I see people at first, like the public opinion of Garcia was one side, and then as more info came out, it shifted dramatically, and it almost like backfired. As opposed to with the gay hairdresser guy, he I feel like the sympathy would have gone the other way, and you would have got more people going, "Oh, we're doing too much here."
I don't know if you say when you say it backfired. I'm sure there's certain people who don't like Garcia, but like some of that might be informed by like hearing about a domestic violence case in the past. Some of it might be informed by hearing about tattoos on his knuckles because people think he literally has MS-13 drawn on his knuckles, and Trump seemed to believe it as well. And so there seemed to be a lot of like nonsense that was circulating everywhere. So I mean, like, he's not a saint. Neither was many other people. But I don't think that he's like a net like PR loss. I don't think even the American public are widely against Mr. Garcia, because the general standard seems to be that he just deserves his day in court, and that's really all the Democrats have called for. Could there be a better like PR activism case to have chosen? Maybe, but at the end of the day, Trump could have come out and said that the Venezuelan gay hairdresser had, behead cops tattooed as a tramp stamp on his ass, and Trump could say anything. So there's still a certain amount of like specter he could create. I acknowledge that maybe a different person might have been slightly more sympathetic, but the media picks up on a name, and it's much harder to get that initial gust of wind, So once you got it, you use it.
I guess, yeah. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I feel like it was a bad choice, but yeah, I don't know. What else you got? Anything else before we get out of here? Anything?
No, honestly, I don't think I have much of anything else. Is there anything else that you particularly wanted to touch on?
No, I think we covered almost all of it. I guess. What do you think about us invading Mexico to kill the cartels?
What was that? Oh, going to invading Mexico. I think it's a bad idea. I think it's a very bad idea.
It's an interesting one. I tell you, I want to see how it plays out.
The problem. Look, if you want to fight the cartels, right, you can't just do it through some big air campaign. You have to have troops on the ground,
I agree with
and that means us having to work with the Mexican authorities, or we're going to invade Mexico. And the Mexican authorities are insanely corrupt. Now, some of them will work with you, but there's something you'd have to coordinate with the local authorities, which comes with its own problems. It's going to be a tough task, no matter what. And if Trump opens that can of worms, good luck. It's not that there's nothing that the United States could do to help stabilize the situation in Mexico. I just don't think an invasion is the way.
Yeah,
it's part of the reason why I didn't agree with it. Not because I don't. It's not because I think that like cartels are nice people. It's just I immediately knew that once you identified the cartels as a terrorist organization, Trump could now use the AUMF after 9/11 to now drone strike Mexico, which is crazy to think about. But
I just don't know that like they're like a different animal than like there's so many different cartels now, and they're all very powerful. They're like quasi like semi-governments. Like it's almost like if we were gonna go in there, there's no way to eliminate them all. It's just you would have to pick your favorite cartel and empower them. Like because they all have different like with local government affiliations. Like you would probably have to pick You either eliminate the biggest
Well,
one,
no,
like
I mean,
it's there's
you
so
would, you would
ingrained.
you would hunt down that Vanderlyn gang one by one until you capture that John Marston. Okay, you eventually you don't. I mean, yeah, there's gonna be some that survive longer, but I guess you pick one and you start there. I
Nah, it's
guess.
totally different though than like a Red Dead scenario. Like these guys aren't just like a gang. Like they used to be the PRI. Like the PRI was in cahoots with the major cartel, and then they broke into all these
In
different
fact, no,
ones.
they're the Pinkertons actually.
Yeah, more likely, yeah. That's more of a better analogy. Is they are the Pinkertons. Like it's they used to be the military police. Some of the cartels used to be the military police. The Zetas are like used to be the special forces. They're totally different groups. Like I just don't see any way to do this without substantial troops on the ground. And unlike terrorist organizations in other countries, they're on the border and they have people here. Like they're definitely going to be able to retaliate. Now they don't generally do that, but it depends
Yeah,
if
I
you're going to
mean, it
eliminate them,
would.
they will.
There's also like a question of like the intelligence of retaliating. Like this isn't America's right there. You're right there. Trump's in office. There's like some questions about like the intelligence of like we're gonna do a terror attack. Like I could see like
Yeah, it's going to
maybe, like
embolden them, but they're not all rational. One
yeah,
cartel
yeah.
might not, but a
No, I
different one
mean like
would.
they could decide that they instead attack just like valuable assets that would only matter to the government, right? Stuff that wouldn't catch like
Public flag.
hey, this random like mineral like mine that's really important for American national security gets attacked while no civilians get killed. I mean, how much headlines does that capture? How much outrage does that produce?
Well, the
I
problem
mean,
is
I'm
there's
sure it
different
produces some
cartels.
outrage, but I mean, a lot less than if it was like a
Well,
terror bombing like ISIS.
well, that's the problem. Is the Zetas would be like, okay, we're gonna go blow up a police station in the United States. Okay, that's bad, but that's like kind of like a targeted thing, right? Versus like I don't know, like MA, they would come in and be like, or the Texas Syndicate or something with ties. They would be like, oh, we're gonna go blow up a biker bar. Like that would be a totally different situation. Like we blew up fucking Twin Peaks. Like they had a shootout at Twin Peaks not too many years ago. Like, oh, we're gonna go try to like jump like FBI agents there or something. Like I could easily see different cartels having different responses. You attack the public, you're gonna galvanize a response. I just don't think that we have the stomach for the bloodshed that it would cost to actually uproot the cartels. Like, they're like entrenched in the Mexican government, like at different levels. And there's different. I don't know. It's a problem. I don't really see a solution here. But we'll talk about it tomorrow. But thank you so much for having me. This has been good.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here.
I think all our comments have been good so far.
Yeah, why haven't you invited me on any panels? Am I terrible?
No, we can get you on something. I don't know what kind of panel. We'll figure it out. I'll get you on something real soon if you want to. The last panel you didn't seem super excited. That wasn't the best one that you on. We'll get you on a more exciting one next time.
What was the last panel though? I don't remember.
I don't know. It must not have been too memorable. I know that it was not my favorite.
Maybe
panel.
that was why I wasn't that excited.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, but we'll get you on a good one here. I'll figure something out, and we'll find you on here. But
Awesome.
Thanks for having me as always. Appreciate it. Oh, you know what you should do? We'll get you the debate championship series one. You could probably beat some people up.
That could be fun. Why not?
All right, man. Talk to you later. Thanks for having me and all that good jazz. All right, that was good stuff. I always like our talks with Dylan. He's a reasonable dim. If we ain't able to talk to the other side, then we got problems. Let's go online here. I'm going to end here briefly, and we are going to come back in about 20 minutes. For whatever. Who should we raid? Let's raid. Should we raid somebody doing politics, or should we raid who we're gonna go? To whatever. We're gonna go to. We'll go to Scott. Only 8 of y'all going, huh? Gotta click the button, guys.